This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity.
Russ Wakeland. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Dan Yarrington in the third chair.
So many games, so little time. So start playing.
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
One game is very like another till the D6G reviews it, brother.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at you the speed of an Allied Spacecraft Corporation Firefly Series 4 Kestrel with a Blue Sun EVT 29-4000-A90 trace compression block engine and underslung wing extenders. Today's edition is brought to you with a very special shout-out. Happy 4th birthday, Luca! Can't wait till you're old enough to play all the cool board games I've bought you. Daddy loves you, little man.
Aw.
I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are Russ Atherton Wing Wakeland and special guest host, the man that would rule the gaming world, Dan Mrs. Yosaf Bridge Yarrington, head of everything at Game Salute. Let's begin. Issue number 1. As every good brown coat knows, there are 9 indispensable crewmen and women in the Serenity for the Firefly series, and we would have it no other way. Throughout the show's run, every character is featured, their background developed, and each proves him or herself to be essential to the healthy running of the ship and to keep the pithy and artful dialogue rolling right along. Question. In Joss Whedon's initial concept work for Firefly, the ship was supposed to have a crew complement of how many? Rance Burgess Russ.
11.
Agent Dobson Dan.
7.
And that was a softball. He says it right there in the extra features on the DVD set. 5. 5 crewmen, and then the passengers just sort of took on lives of their own and became integral parts of the show. I am disappointed. Issue number 2. Conventions and sometimes trade shows are often great places for a person to meet the men and women behind some of their greatest passions. Whether it's a game designer, a writer, or a publisher, they are all there to meet their fans and businessmen and further their artistic work. Question. At a panel discussion at DragonCon 2008, Marina Baccarin revealed what intended but never developed character history element for her lovely courtesan companion character Inara in Firefly and Serenity. Rahab Russ.
Her love for Mal.
Martha Dabrin Dan.
A love triangle with River.
A, intriguing, and B, I don't think Russ watched the same series as the rest of us. Answer. Why that? She had a terminal illness, of course. There's all kinds of flashbacks and momentary scenes that actually hint at this, but it was never fully developed because Fox sucks, but no hate. Issue number 3. The term clash of cultures was first used in the late 1800s to denote the traumatic upheaval possibly resulting when 2 disparate societal ethos meet in a less than peaceable manner. Over the last 100 years, it has come to refer primarily to the conflicts arising between those cultures seen classically as Western and those cultures arising from the region known as the Middle East. Question. In Firefly, the culture of the core is mishmash of American Chinese culture, purposefully meant to recreate a possible future where these 2 superpowers were forced to combine their efforts and resources despite their differences. What was the official name of the political entity that ruled the core worlds and would rule the entire system if they had their way? Yao and Yao Wakeland.
Ooh. I don't know. I got nothing.
Ding Chow Yarrington.
Guessing it's not as simple as the Alliance.
Oh, sadly, it is not. It is the Anglo-Sino Alliance, of course, which makes you both wrong, and these are all really not that hard. Although I will admit that Anglo in this particular context really confuses me because it's generally used to refer to England, but anyway. Issue number 4. A trade show is an exhibition organized so that companies in a specific industry can showcase and demonstrate their latest products, services, study activities of rivals, and examine recent market trends and opportunities. In contrast to consumer fairs, most trade shows are not open to the public. Z-Man Games' latest offering, Clash of Cultures, marked a move in the industry away from big reveals at trade shows, however, and more into public shows as they made their first big reveal at Essen in Germany. Question. In several episodes of Firefly, one of the characters wears an unaltered contemporary German police jacket. What was the real name of the place most clearly identified with this character? Jeff Reckitt's Russ.
What? I got
Larry Drake Dan.
I have no idea. Persephone?
Oh, Canton, of course. Canton.
nice.
Canton, the man they call Jane. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by GameSalute.com. Check out gaming news or find out what the new hotness is on Springboard. GameSalute.com.
And by Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, making historical wargaming less scary and more fun.
Hello!
Hello!
Hello.
And welcome to episode 121
2-1, baby.
of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Dan Yarrington.
Hey, Dan, welcome back to the show. We're so excited to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Always excellent to have Dan, the man behind Game Salute, Myriad Games.
Get more in the know than Dan.
You do not, which is very exciting. And, you know, Dan, we figured since we had you on the show here, Dan, and you've been traveling literally around the world, you know, literally from many countries, going to trade shows.
How many times have you made the run across the Cape of Good Hope, Dan? Several, I'm sure.
This year or an all-time?
Oh, let's make it easy. All time.
Not as often as you'd think. I just started traveling more this year, so.
There you go. But so you've been going to a lot of trade shows. We thought it'd be great to talk to Dan about what exactly is a game trade show? How is it different from a convention? And what kind of things? You know, a lot of people go to these things. What are they like? So you get the insider's view. You know, because we heard in Rapid Fire, they're not open to the public. They're just sort of private affairs. You know, kind of hoity-toity, really.
Indeed. Hoity-toity is exactly how I describe them when I'm talking about them all the time.
Yes. And then also, speaking of hoity-toity, which implies culture, we're also later going to talk about Clash of Cultures.
Ching ching.
The brand new hotness from Z-Man Games. How'd you like that segue, Dan?
I don't know. It just reminded me of Hoity Toity, the game by Klaus Teuber.
See, I think we could do a whole segment on just throwing out colloquialisms, and Dan can name the games.
Dan can tell us what game they remind him of.
Right. That'd be awesome. And speaking of contests, we are currently holding a contest right now. Actually, it's wrapping up with this episode. We had the Fancy Pants contest where we hoped you would call in and give us your 2013 resolutions. And so many of you did. And by the way, it's over now. Stop calling in. Done. We filled up 2 big segments last episode. There's 2 big segments this episode. In the middle there, bumpers between segments of your call-ins. They were great. Thank you so much. And then also later in the show, we'll be on to announce the second winner. We randomly determined, well, just like last episode, we randomly determined that Adam was our big winner, and he's already looked at pictures of the prize tub, and he chose the excellent choice Dungeon, the reprint Dungeon out of the tub. So that'll be shipped out from your friendly friends at Game Salute shortly for you there. And also, we're going to have another winner this week, and we'll send you out some pictures of that as well to our winner, and you will get a choice from the D6G prize tub, which is also brimming over with new hotness as well. So hopefully we'll get something good there.
Always.
Yeah, just got new versions of Dungeon Command from our friends at Wizards of the Coast. 2 new hotnesses there as well. And let's see, what else should we talk about here? Oh, you know, we get some announcements here. Craig, are you familiar with the Wounded Warriors Project?
I am familiar with the Wounded Warriors Project, Russ. Why would you ask?
Well, we were very excited to have a shout-out from our friends over at the Wounded Warrior Project. There's some folks over there running a fundraiser for it, and they were going to have a shout-out in this very show, and I just thought it'd be nice to kind of talk about it a little bit and give an extra kick, because it's a great charity organization. Dan, are you familiar with it at all?
I am, yes, and there are lots of the organizations that I work with do donations to that.
Now, what is it about? Can you give a quick, 20-second overview?
Well, it's basically just anything supporting veterans that have come back that are specifically wounded in battle. So whether they have, it actually applies to even things like, you might think it's just amputees or stuff like that, but it's actually post-traumatic stress disorder, a whole bunch of different things. And since a lot of veterans play gaming, then they need that support for when they're at the VA hospital, that sort of stuff. So it really ties into their mental and physical well-being, keeping them in good spirits while they're being treated.
Exactly right. So it's very exciting. It's a great organization, a great way to donate. So if you want to check that out, head over to vets.wwpd.net. to participate in doing a gaming marathon thing for that as well. Generate some revenue for that, or for those guys over there. So it'd be great.
Let's jump on that.
Yeah, please help them out. That's fantastic. Let's see now. Now you might have noticed there was a bit of Firefly references in today's rapid fire. Just a couple. It wasn't a lot. Did a little bit of hints at it.
This Firefly.
Why was that, Craig? Why did you feel the need to put some Firefly in there this week?
I didn't. McNerdigan loves his Firefly.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes.
It's Firefly. Like a wrestler. Well, we just chatted. It was very intriguing. First of all, of course, there's been the big announcement from Battlefront and Gale Force 9. Those guys have announced that they've got a new Firefly game in the works. And so everybody's excited about that. And because everybody's excited about that, the three of us, who are all inveterate browncoats, decided that rather than talk about some sort of esoteric topic during the Lost Chapters, we would wax poetical about Firefly and Serenity and why we love them and what's cool about them. So we basically just get our geek on about Firefly for the entire Lost Chapter, and it was awesome.
It was fun.
Exciting.
And you know what's funny about that too, Dan? So we had a couple people email us and say, "Oh man, I really want to get into the Lost Chapters. I've been holding out, but Firefly's going to lure me right in." And then a couple folks said, and it's great because they said, "Well, I would like to get to the back catalog, but $2 an episode, you got like 50 of them now. That's like $100 a Lost. That's a lot of Lost Chapters." I am now going to tell you guys a little secret. Okay,
yes, a secret that we've been talking about, but I don't think we've mentioned in a little while.
This is just between you and me and the other 20,000 or so listeners. Just shh. Okay, just between us. Yes, you can buy them individually at $2 a copy. And that's great if it works for you. You want to just get them one at a time. You're all caught up. That's fine. But we also have this subscription option. And the way the subscription option works is you can subscribe at $4 a month or longer periods, 6 months or 12-month options, and they actually give you a savings, making it cheaper than $4 a month. But the deal with the subscription is while you are a subscriber, you can listen to the entire Lost Chapters episode catalog as much as you want. Kind of like Netflix. You pay for 1 month of Netflix, you can watch as many movies as you cram in there. Same deal with this. You could subscribe for a month, listen to as many Lost Chapters as you can, and then stop the subscription if you want to.
And they're only 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Which is kind of intriguing that our extra added little thing is generally the size of many of the other podcasts out there. But,
right. So if you want to catch up with the bonuses, that's the way to do it. And, do it that way. And then just, hey, if you want to cancel your subscription, that's fine. You helped us out a little bit. We appreciate it. If you want to keep going, that's great too. Keep, that you'll get 2 new ones every month. It's kind of like the Franklin Mint Book Club.
It's very much like that.
It's just like that. You could cancel any time or continue your subscription, and we receive great books month after month. Just like that.
I think I keep getting those things from Disney. Are you guys going to start sending out mailers? Look at all these great Lost Chapter episodes.
We should. And also, remember, if you have a smartphone, an Android or an iOS one, you definitely want to get our app, which is totally free. Makes it easier to subscribe to all this stuff. And also, international users were saying, I'm an international Android users. International iOS guys, no problem, works fine. But international Android guys, our app is in the Amazon store, and Amazon won't sell overseas. Not to worry, we have a link directly to a website. You can download the app directly without having to go through Amazon, no matter where you are in the world. Head on over to the D6 Generation, click on the Lost Chapter stack of books on the right-hand side for all the data on that as well. So there's really no excuse not to listen to these babies for very cheap. Let's be honest.
And actually, while we're talking about this, it occurred to me a while ago that we have not actually talked about our shout-outs and how you get them in a while.
Oh, we haven't. We should do that.
So how do we get a shout out? We have, for some reason, we don't know why, been blessed with a bumper crop of new listeners, if you will. And we would like to thank you all for coming and welcome you into the fold.
Yes.
And they're hearing all of these shout outs. And how do they get their own shout out, Russ?
Well, it's a good question, Craig. I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So how it works basically is that we hold auctions for our shout outs. We don't want to presuppose to tell you, our listeners, what the value of these shout-outs are. We have no idea. Right?
We never, ever, ever wanted to be in that position.
So what we decided to do is we hold eBay auctions for all the 5 shout-out slots every 2 weeks. So pretty much the day or two after a show goes live, the new shout-outs are up, and they run for about 5 to 7 days. And you can go bid on them for every one. And they all start at 99 cents. They all start dirt cheap. And you can get one for $1. And if some people really wants to get that shout-out, they'll go up. Sometimes they go as high as, $15, $20 a shot. But usually they're down around $5, $10 or a little less. So it's a great way for someone who's got a little Kickstarter project to maybe get a little shout out about that, or if you want to say hi to your son, or maybe your husband's birthday, whatever you want to do. And we love to get those fun little, maybe some trash talk. Those are always fun too. Tell your other gamers you're going to kick their butt next week at whatever game you're going to play. Always a lot of fun, easy to do. If you forget all that, don't worry. Go to our website. Look on the right-hand side. You'll see a big megaphone that says shout outs. Click on that. It'll tell you all how it works. Right? So another great way to contribute to the show. We appreciate all that support. It really helps us, keeps us going. We had a soundboard crash a couple episodes ago with Rick. You heard all that. So this helps us resolve those issues quickly and get back on our feet. So it's very helpful.
That's right.
So, Craig, what's the time now for?
Oh, right now it would probably be roughly time for achievements in gaming.
There it goes. Oh, our little... See, there's another thing I got to spend money on. My soundboard's little new thing. See, you get a new soundboard.
We see. We need more. We need money for a blue.
I know, right? Wow, that's weak. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, you totally have to pay a licensing fee to Microsoft every time you use that, right?
I guess so. Let's try that again. Well, here we go.
That may be why it suddenly stopped working.
I know. Maybe Microsoft's lawyers got in touch with my anyway.
With soundboard.
My soundboard is failing. Come on, one more time. There we go. All right, thank goodness. Okay, so Dan, do you want to try to read the shout-out this week?
Sure. Let's see. This is a shout out for Achievements in Gaming.
Yes,
Achievements in Gaming is... We are on Achievements in Gaming, right?
We are, yeah. That's right. Dan.
Okay. Achievements in Gaming is brought to us by the Wounded Warrior Project. WWPD is sponsoring a worldwide gaming fundraiser to benefit the Wounded Warrior Project and other worldwide veterans organizations on March 30th. That's March 30th, 2013. Please visit vets.wwpd.net to participate in the Day of Great Gaming for a great cause.
Are you sure you're not a professional announcer? Because that sounded really good.
I have been known to talk from time to time.
That was pretty impressive. So, for our new listeners out there, all 6 of you, we like to thank, in Achievements in Gaming, we talk about what we've been playing lately, and that little bleepy noise you hear is the intentional achievement noise. It is not something wrong, although when you don't hear the noise, something is wrong. So
we have been getting, the reason that you'll be seeing, you'll be hearing a lot of reminders this episode is because we have been receiving a bunch of questions lately from a bunch of the new listeners asking all these different questions, and it occurs to us that we don't really revisit what these things are from time to time, and we probably should.
This is a test.
You really just need to get like a primer that's like a 15-minute episode that explains to you, like, here's the rules of how the D6 generation works.
Yeah, you can go listen to episode 1, but maybe we do need like a little episode 0, really 5-minute overview of the various, and then we could just extend it once in a while and run down the running jokes, the in-jokes.
Lost chapter 51.
It's a lost chapter. Brilliant. Okay.
It's not 45 minutes.
Oh, it could be.
We can make anything longer. If we know nothing by now, we know that.
We could just let us talk forever. You just add.
How to make things longer than they should be.
Right.
Here's the history of how shout-outs started.
All right, Dan, why don't you start off here? What have you been playing lately, sir?
Okay, well, I've been playing a bunch of games that are very self-asservedly Game Salute titles that are in development, because that's pretty much what I do.
So this
each
is not
day.
really a giant ad, but it's a giant ad.
Well, I'm not going to go too much into them, but I'll just give you a sneak peek of some of the stuff coming up. One that I played that was not from Game Salute was Sentinels of the Multiverse by Greater. Have you guys played that one?
I have not, but I need to. I really want to.
Yeah, it's a co-op. It's a ton of fun. You're playing superheroes, and you basically just battle, and it's a great little card game. Comes with tons of cards. They've got a bunch of expansions. So I played that one for the first time. Finally, I've had a copy from the guys over at the folks that make that.
Yep.
Chris and all those great guys. And they said that to me, and I finally got to play it. I think this was about a month ago, but I had a blast with that. Still on my shelf. Epic Death is a new game that we picked up, which is all about kind of like Munchkin meets Gloom, but the best parts of those two. And effectively, you're going on quests, and you can either fail or you can have an epic success.
Nice.
And what you want to do is die, just like in Gloom. You have to die in order to score points. So you want to die, but in an epic way to get the most points. And you only score points for the people that are dead at the end. So
nice.
Very light little game.
That sounds fun.
The card game of Oz, which is based on the books by L. Frank Baum.
You know, we got a review copy of that. I have to say the artwork for that is fantastic. I love it. It's
and if you head over to, I think it's gamesalute.com/card game of Oz, the Kickstarter for this is up now, but you can see the art gallery there of some of the cards.
Yeah,
there's
cool.
54 artists in this game, and all different styles, but some really nice art for that. That one's been fun.
It's got a cool steampunk meets Wizard of Oz look going on there. I love it.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the, if you saw in the pledge, you can get the glasses that are like the steampunk Oz glasses.
Oh, I need goggles. Those are really expensive too. I got to check that out now.
Yeah, they're not goggles. They're just like regular glasses, but they look very steampunk. So.
Oh, cool. Right.
Great Snowball Battle is it's wintertime, so it's appropriate for this. But
I had
it's
one of
just
those
a
last
real
week.
light game where you're tossing cards back and forth, and effectively like you're all kids and you're all playing snowball fights, but you only have a certain amount of gear. So I can like hit you and knock your hat off, or like you're holding up the garbage can lid and I knock that down and you can run from tree to tree to get covered.
Are there events like Lost Mitten? You can only fire at half rate till you find your mitten again?
Yeah, there are things like that. There's not that particular card, but there's also like you can get knocked out and basically you have to go inside because you're too cold.
Right.
So your mother's like, "Come inside, you gotta catch a cold," and then you can actually get back in the game because
chocolate.
somebody can give you their stuff with hot chocolate and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So that's a really quick like 5-10 minute game.
Nice.
Vici is a 2-player one that we are doing, which is just a battle game where you have spearmen, bowmen, and they all have different abilities and different strengths. And effectively, you're always charging forward. You only go forward in this game, and so there's a lot of maneuvering. And then you either roll dice or you play from a deck of cards, depending on the mode of the game you're playing, and it just determines who wins each battle. You want to be the first one to infiltrate your opponent's camp. So that's a good 2-player one. And then Prince of the Dragon Throne is the one that I've been most excited about recently, which is a huge area control with a deck building element that you're building up your kind of troops. It's kind of a very light deck building element. And then you use them to gain control of the different regions to gain political control because you want to be the next king of the Dragon Throne. And right now you're all princes effectively waiting for the king to die and positioning yourself to take over the throne when he passes.
Nice.
And Vici, of course, is the third in the famous gaming trilogy, which featured Vini and Vidi.
Yes, we actually joked with the designer Ben Schulman about that, and he said, "Oh, actually, I have a prequel game." I was like, "Okay, let's get this one out first." Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Nice.
So that's some of the stuff I've been doing. There's probably another 12 games I've played, but that's just a little overview.
That's a nice little set there. All right. How about you, Craig?
Vini being the adult version.
Yes.
More wine. What have you been playing, Craig?
Not a lot. I've been super hyper busy and sick at the same time.
Nice.
So what I did actually play was, and this ties into something a little bit later on, I played the entire full adventure in the Fantasy Flight games, little mini games, the Star Wars Edge of the Empire beginner game.
Now, did you run this or did you play as a player?
I ran it as the game master. It is basically an introduction to role playing in the world of Star Wars, in the universe of Star Wars. It was awesome.
Cool.
And you know where I played, guys?
Where'd you play?
I played at Myriad Games, which is an awesome place to play both board games, miniature games, and role-playing games, because especially at the Manchester store, the whole store is kind of like a transformer on the inside. And it's like at 7 o'clock, you're like, oh, we really was hoping for sort of a quiet. And the guy's like, wait 1 second. And you've got this awesome space that they create that was just like a really nice, quiet space, just that was perfect for role-playing.
Awesome.
So that's Manchester. But of course...
Yeah, so Dan, I don't know if you're familiar with this Myriad Game Store, but I heard there's a new one on Staten Island. How's that one going?
That's what I heard.
I heard that's just an urban legend. They had some sort of storm down there, and they just couldn't open. No, Staten Island is the first in what we call our expanded family of Myriad Games locations. So obviously we have our 2 up here in New Hampshire, and then Staten Island we actually opened with Paul and Zev from Z-Man Games.
Nice.
And they that's our new one that just opened up right at the end of January, beginning of February. So they've been running strong now. We were delayed a little bit from the holidays due to all the storm and the construction that went into that, but it's up and running now, and it looks great. We've poured a lot of love and care into it, and it is everything that you would hope a game store would be. And it's really the only Paul's from Staten Island originally, and that's why they wanted to do it there, because Staten Island's like 500,000 people, right. And it has like some comic stores and that sort of stuff, but it doesn't have any dedicated game store, and so that's what the focus of that was.
The tendrils spread.
Nice. That's awesome. And because, Zeb's running it, there's got to be plenty of Clash of Cultures copies right there on the shelves.
I believe there are. There's the new Pandemic, too.
Nice. Very good.
And speaking of Clash of Cultures, that's my second game that I played in Achievements, Clash of Cultures.
Nice. And we'll talk more about that later in this very episode.
Ross, what did you play?
Well, I also had real life get in the way. I missed a couple Tuesdays due to various family events. That didn't stop me from getting a few games in, though. Our Descent 2 campaign is still rolling along very nicely. In fact, the heroes have swept Act 1. They won every single adventure.
I heard them complaining that they were starting to feel guilty.
Well, that's part of my clever plan, you see.
Of course.
I have to lull them. Although I thought I had lulled them in the false sense of security, and then Josh walked in this time and was like, look, we can beat him in 2. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I almost had them, but then I didn't. So then...
Thanks for the summary.
So next week is the interlude, in which we will then fight the first interlude battle I've ever fought, actually, because the last Descent 2 campaign I tried to do petered out. So this one's going strong, and it's taken us, just people who are trying to keep track at home, how long this is. We have played 4 2-hour sessions, and at the end of the last 2-hour session, we've completed all of the Act 1 events. So it's looking like probably about 8 hours total. Oh, no, sorry, that's right. 8 hours for the first half. So you're probably looking at 16 to 20 hours total campaign time, which is a lot, but much, much shorter than the original Descent campaign. So it definitely looks like finishing site. We're having a great time. Got a dedicated group.
There's a whole new campaign out there waiting for you to finish this one.
It's not out yet, but it's coming soon. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, we did, when we were camping this past summer, we did that in like 2 days. We did Act 1 because we've got time. So I really like the pace of that.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. It's really a lot of fun. And what's also cool is like I got the new expansion that's it's got the secret rooms in it, and it's got new monsters, and it's great because I love how you can pick and choose your monsters every time as the Overlord. And the other thing we've been doing is we always end a week. We always pick where they're going to go next. We don't actually do the travel. We just pick where they're going to go. And what that allows me to do as Overlord is it gives me a whole week to review the mission and pick my monsters. Because now I've got the upgrade kit, I've got the new expansion, and all the monsters that came in original Descent 2. That's like 60 monsters to choose from. So it takes you time. So if you do all that between weeks and I figure it all out and everything, everybody gets excited. The heroes all get a chance to read the quest over. They've all got their own copies, and it works great. So had a lot of fun with that. Also played Article 27. It was great. We had about 6 players hanging out after Descent on Tuesday at Married Games there, and everybody had things to do. In about an hour from now, we're like sitting there, 6 people. What are you going to do with 6 people in an hour? I'm like, Article 27 is perfect for this. Broke it out, had a great time. There's not many filler games that run in an hour for 6 people, and it's just a great game to play too. Good fun. Let's see. Also, Clash of Cultures with Craig there. Played the 4-player variant, which was the 4-player version with the 4-turn variant. Went really, really well.
Using.
Yeah, it is confusing. And then also, speaking of role-playing games, now you got your Star Wars game, and I've been prepping up for the Iron Kingdoms RPG that I'll be running.
Prepping a role-playing game counts under other, but, whatever.
Well, it's a game I'm working on playing, okay?
Exactly, working on playing other.
Well, for
that
RPG,
counts game time.
Yeah, RPG, I mean, putting it together is part of the fun, right? Rolling the characters up is all part
It absolutely is, and it's always been under other, but that's fine. That's fine. You go ahead and change. You go ahead and change tradition, man.
For our new listeners, Craig's the draconian one.
Where'd it get us? Absolutely. Draconian one.
All right. By the way, that's a really cool card in Clash of Cultures. Okay, moving on to modeling. Here's what we talk about what we've been doing in the miniature wargaming modeling realm. Craig.
Nothing. I've been feeling guilty about not touching my Infinity models since I put them all together, primed them, and dry brushed them. So that's mainly. And then I did get a giant package from England from Antennasetti's workshop.
Ooh, what is that?
And I'm telling you right now, if you're playing Infinity, you have to go to that website. Tell them that you heard it from us so they know. Because right now they think I'm kind of annoying yank. But tell them that you heard it from us. But go there by all means. You have no idea the coolness in store. Little detail pieces like little security panels, 20 security panels that you can put on your buildings. It's awesome for scratch buildings. It's awesome for kicking up a notch the buildings that you already have. I have a bunch of computer screens, and all the computer screens come with awesome glossy printouts that you just glue into the space for the computer screens. They're full color. They're multi-dimensional. I mean, they look amazing. I've got advertisements, futuristic advertisements that are, really cool in multiple sizes. I have furniture. I have office furniture. I have beds. I can make like a dormitory. I have planters. And then yesterday I went to the Hobby Lobby and I got all kinds of fake plants. And so you can actually have like office plants in your stuff.
Nice.
What else do I? It's crazy. I have a giant captain's chair, right? That's for a starship that includes like multiple screens. Oh, it's amazing.
That's awesome. So now, what was the website of this workshop place again?
Yeah, you need to go to Google because I'm not even going to be able to try to spell it. Let me see. Okay.
Workshop.
And It's ANTENOCITIS workshop.
All right. .com or .co.uk?
It's .com.
All right.
And when you get there, there's two places to go because it gets a little confusing. It looks like you want to go to Wargame Scenery Sci-Fi, which is cool. There's a lot of cool stuff there. But where you really want to go is this little, all the way over to the right, it says GOT, and that's all it says. And I was going to this website for like 3 weeks before I even clicked on it. And ultimately I clicked on it because I thought it meant Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones, that'd be cool. This is where all of their awesome high sci-fi generic stuff is, including like they have a tactical station that's like a big giant table that has maps on it and stuff. And again, these are all full color images that you get. They've got doors. They've got a map. Oh, it's just crazy. I don't want to go over their whole catalog. But seriously, I spent way more money than I should. And I got all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm not modeling with it yet, but I'm staring at it going, this is going to be so cool when I figure out what to do with it.
Well, that sounds awesome. I'll have to check that out.
That's what I did modeling-wise. I drooled.
Oh, see, I did a little bit. I've been slowly acquiring Gale Force 9 Battlefield in a Box terrain from my local Myriad game store, actually. I've said before, if you want terrain that's just pretty much done for you out of the box at a reasonable price, the Battlefield in the Box stuff is just fantastic. And so my daughter Rose, I took her to Myriad and let her pick the next piece of terrain for our terrain table we've been playing Hordes on, and she chose a river, which she claims is because she likes the look of it, but I suspect it's because most of her guys have Pathfinder and mine don't. So that's my theory, which allows her to ignore difficult terrain. I think there's a meta game going on there that I'm not really sure about, but I got to keep an eye on her. Also, I got my Descent foam. I finally got the foam. I've been painting a lot of my Descent models lately. In fact, I just painted my Kobolds, the Dragon Hybrids from the new expansion, as well as a bunch of chests and coins that I think, Craig, I think you made this for me, actually, to replace my search tokens with nice little chests. And I need a place to store all these because I'm throwing them in the bags and it's just getting scratched up, so that's kind of dumb. So I got some Battle Foam. I got the Descent original set Battle Foam, and then it comes in the size that fit in a pack 720, and I'm going to put other foam trays in there as well to put all the new models from the newer sets in there too. So that's working really well for me. So I'm very pleased with my my Descent collection is growing. I'm having a fun time playing the game as well as modeling for it. Dan, you doing any modeling or anything like that?
I've done some billboards and magazine covers, but I really had to cut back on that because my schedule is so busy these days.
Yeah, how the abs working out for you?
They keep just getting better and better. There's more and more abs there, I think, is what that is. It's either that or they're getting covered up by more and more.
Okay, one giant ab. That's
there you go. Super ab.
Right, super ab. Nice. Okay, modeling check. Got it. Okay. How about other? This is for our new listeners. Remember, Craig is the draconian one. For our new listeners, we talk about this part's the random geek stuff, like books we're reading, movies we're watching, TV shows we like, whatever. Craig, what have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing lately? What have you done for me? So anyway, let's see. I have been listening to Andrew Swan's Apotheosis series, as I have been for the last month or two. And I am on the third and final book,
Me too.
Messiah.
Yeah, me too.
How many hours you got left?
I'm still in the first half of the book. I got like 3 hours in the first half.
Have you gotten to any of the really awkward sex scenes yet? No, you would know.
I had the one with the mixed species one.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Yes. They just get stranger. So
okay.
and it wouldn't really. I mean, it's not like I'm a prude. They wouldn't really. I wouldn't comment on them if A, there had ever been in the first two books any hint of sexuality anywhere in the first two books.
Yeah.
And B, if they weren't really taking a very intriguing, odd twist. But that's sort of what's been stuck in my head lately.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
I have a new job, which I'm ridiculously super excited about.
What you doing?
Fantasy Flight Games has brought me in on the Star Wars role-playing game team.
Ooh, Craig, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. That I'm super excited about.
Is that not a dream job or what?
We're writing for 40K, and then if you had said, what's like the one other thing you really wish, and it would be like, well, let's see, I'm getting grim darked out. Star Wars. Right. And I got that email, and I just was like, oh my God. And I went to my wife, who just didn't understand. And she tried to be excited for me, though.
Now, if you email Margaret Weiss Productions and get to work on the Firefly game, you would pretty much have the trifecta there.
Yeah, no, that's true. On the other hand, I don't know when I would do that. I just had the proverbial weekend from hell where I was ripping through my first Star Wars assignment, which is awesome, by the way. I got to invent a new species.
That is cool.
Species for Star Wars. And codify in the new rule system 3 standard long-term race species. Sorry, they're not races, they're species. They're races if there's more than 3 different types of one particular species. Anyway, that's from the style guide, the Star Wars style guide. I would not say that George Lucas is as bad as GW when it comes to control of the IP, but he's learned a lot. Let's put it that way. But so at the same time, I was scrambling ridiculously working for Wild West Exodus, because as you guys, and check it out, because I'm going to be totally self-serving here for a moment, go to Wild West Exodus, the Kickstarter. Look it up. It's really cool and all kinds of neat stuff. And as you watch it, keep in mind that every time a new stretch goal is reached, someone out there has to write all that new stuff into the fluff. So every time we hit a new goal, I'm like, yay! Oh, crap. It's not like it all gets like rewritten, but there are certain sections where they're almost like catch-up stations at for the Amazing Race, where everything can kind of catch itself up, and that's where I can sort of slot in the new stuff. And so that's what I was doing over the weekend. I was sort of going back and forth between Wild West sci-fi and Star Wars.
Oh, excellent.
So it was a very.
You just gotta quit teaching, and then you'll have time to do all this game making stuff.
Right. Yeah. Now, if this stuff paid well enough for me to,
Right.
that'd be awesome. Anyway, so that's my other.
Well, that's pretty good there, Craig. That's pretty impressive.
Very exciting.
That's very exciting. Dan, what have you been doing?
So I've been watching some TV shows, watching some movies, listening to music, and reading books. So I'll give you them. On the flight over to Nuremberg, I got to watch like 5 movies on the way there and back. And I can't remember 2 of them, so they probably weren't very good. But I finally got to watch Lincoln, which I was surprised they had on the plane already. But
that's pretty good.
That one was awesome. I want to watch that again on a bigger screen and with Sarah.
Recommend it with a bigger screen.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely an awesome movie. I watched Liberal Arts, which stars the guy from How I Met Your Mother, Josh Radnor.
Yeah.
It was kind of a standard sappy chick flick, but it was a little different. I watched Taken 2, totally different, totally on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is pretty much what you'd expect if you've seen Liam Neeson in Taken.
Right.
It's same thing. And then for TV shows, we've been watching a whole bunch of stuff. Justified, Castle.
Yep. Castle's awesome.
Community. I just started watching the final season of that, so I've been enjoying that. Walking Dead just came back from a break, so we started watching that. That's still good. And then I've been watching some classic stuff like Next Generation and DS9. I'm just kind of working my way through the series every now and again. And Avatar was actually one that I enjoyed as well. I've been watching that one.
Yep.
And then one from I was catching up on some series on HBO Go, and I forgot that I hadn't finished Deadwood, the final season.
Oh yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Keep your memories pure.
Okay. Well, I'm at like episode 4 of season 3.
HBO is not as bad as Fox, but when they decide to get rid of a series, they don't really, they don't take the time to do it with love.
Oh, you didn't think Sopranos, the ending was good for that?
I'm not a big Sopranos fan anyway, but I was like laughing at all the Soprano fans I was with when we all watched the finale together.
I gotcha. But yeah, I mean, I love Timothy Olyphant in Justified, and he's in Deadwood too. So I had to. I want to finish that off.
No, you have to. I'm teasing, but it is kind of.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Mumford and Sons. Have you guys listened to this band?
That's a good band. I like them a lot. Yeah, I've quite some of their albums. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of that. Love that. As far as books, I've been reading The Hobbit to Logan during bedtime for the last couple months.
Ooh, excellent choice.
So that's been fun. And that's one of actually my favorite narratives from Tolkien. I've read most of the Tolkien stuff, including all the unwritten tales and all that crap, because I did some independent studies on it back in college. But The Hobbit, narratively speaking, is is definitely one of my favorites as far as the arc of the story. The writing is, it's Tolkien, but the actual events of the narrative are very exciting. So it's got a lot of cool characters. So that's cool to reminisce on that while I'm reading it. I finished Dresden Files. I'm all caught up on that. I think Cold Days is the latest one, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's still one of my favorite series. By
the way, this just reminded me of a really cool little funny thing that Jim Butcher did on Twitter. So Jim Butcher's Twitter handle is at LongshotAuthor, in case you want to follow him. I don't know if you guys know this, but Random House was just acquired Penguin Publishing. And so Jim Butcher is campaigning that they should rename themselves Random Penguin. And as part of his campaign, he is republishing on Twitter the covers of Dresden File books with random penguins in corners or in different locations. And he's got the cover of Cold Days is there, but then there's little penguins in the bottom. He's walking around. It's hilarious. Sorry, I just had to go there. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that's a great series, and he's
good series.
you can see that sense of humor come through in the writing. I'm actually picking up his other series because now that I'm caught up with Dresden Files. I forget what's the other series, Craig, the fantasy one. Yeah, so I'm going to start reading that one, I think, because I got to keep my Butcher addiction going.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out of that.
Yep.
And then American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I just started reading. Have either of you guys read this?
I have not.
Long time ago.
Yeah, it's a neat thing where it kind of is. It's all about kind of forgotten gods that come to America from old worlds, and they lose their powers, and it's just kind of about how myth and faith interact, and it's interesting so far. I'm not too far into it, but one of the ones that I'm enjoying most, I read some graphic novel series. So Atomic Robo, have you guys read this?
Yes, we had him on the show actually a while ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
not the robot, the creator.
Tesla?
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan of Scott's writing, and I'm only through 5. I think 7 just came out, Volume 7.
Yes.
But I just love the fluff of that. I'm looking forward to. There's a role playing game coming out from Evil Hat.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that. And then Unwritten. If you guys haven't read, it's called The Unwritten, and it is a graphic novel series. I think there's 8 or 9 volumes now.
Wow.
And it's all about kind of, it's another one where it's kind of like the myths and stories and interaction. And it actually starts out based on a parody of a character who is very much like Harry Potter, where basically his father wrote these books about him. And so he's Tommy Taylor in the books, but then his name is Tom Taylor in real life. And so it has this whole kind of neat interaction thing. And then the plot unravels and you start finding out that he's not actually what you think he is. And it's a much more kind of serious and adult, mature. It's in the Vertigo line, so it's a more adult setup. But that's what I've been reading lately, and I've been enjoying those.
Well, that's some serious heavy achievements there. Nice stuff. Oh, and speaking of Atomic Robo, do you know that there is an Atomic Robo figure appearing, a licensed one, appearing in Rivet Wars? They got a little deal with them on that too. It's very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. So let's see. For me, real quick here, I also, speaking actually of myths and stuff, I also finished Heretics, the second book in the Apotheosis series by Andrew Swan with 2 N's. And I'm now on the last book, as Craig is, and I guess I'm a little farther than I'm about halfway through. I've decided this book is... 2 things about these books. I'm really enjoying them a lot, but a couple caveats. First, some books, you're really in it for the characters. Like, you just know that the characters are so cool. You almost don't even care what happens. It's just the characters are so cool and you're with it for a ride. Like Tyrion in Game of Thrones, that kind of thing. And I think Martin's the kind of writer or George R. R. Martin is the kind of writer where you buy into the character so much, you almost forgive him for the story being slow because the characters are just so fun to watch. The fantasy book we just read, Craig, First Law series, same sort of thing. The characters are so great. There is an overarching story, but you're really there to see what happens to the characters.
Joe Abercrombie is awesome with his characters.
Yes, this book is one of the stories where the characters they're kind of predictable. They're almost all 2-dimensional. Except the overall story is interesting enough where they're really there to drive the story, unless. You know what I mean? Like
I would agree with that.
So and it's good. It's just a different kind of story, and it reminds me very much, especially with the religious overtones, especially what happens near the end of the first book or second book, of the Left Behind series, which was the series of what would happen if the rapture really happened in modern day, right? So this book is sort of like the sci-fi rapture, if you will, in kind of a strange way. Very sci-fi still. I'm still liking it a lot, but it's got that obviously very, very heavy religious overtones, which is fine. And then it also has that sort of, the characters aren't great, but I'm still liking the plot, and I'm liking where it's going, and I'm liking the idea and sort of the metaphysical thinking you do about, the soul and where it lives, if you can transcend your body and all that kind of stuff's in there too. So it's
I would say it's so heavily invested in its own mythology that the way it treats its characters and the way that the characters are basically two-dimensional plot devices is almost part of that sort of genre. I don't think he meant to do it that way, but that's it's like reading the Odyssey and you're like, this Odysseus fellow is not nearly as deep as he could be. Yeah.
Well, and it reminded me of the Left Behind series, both from the religious point of view, but also because I don't know if you read Left Behind, but it had the same sort of thing where the overall arc was interesting, but the characters were all very two-dimensional, like whatever. I didn't really care about any of them. Same sort of thing here, but I really like it. It's a good book. It's a good read. And we should talk about Audible real quick. Of course, I'm listening to it on Audible. Fantastic way to listen to books. Great way to do it. And right now, there's a great Audible deal on the D6 Generation. Go on over to our website, click the Audible ad. You get a free 30-day trial and a free credit, which gets you any book you want for free. Keep it forever. Listen as often as you want. Even if you cancel and don't pay anything, you still get to keep your book. Try out one of these books from this series. It's a great way to do it.
I believe there's one, and yet another one of their many sales going on right now where there's a whole bunch of books for $5. Right. Audio books for $5. You cannot beat that price.
Actually, I mentioned Left Behind. I listened to that whole series on Audible as well. I still have them in my library.
I have a question about that. I assume that Audible, I haven't listened to it on I think last time I used it, it was on PC. But I assume they have apps for Android and iOS and all that stuff.
They have fantastic apps for your iOS or Android devices. The apps are so cool, actually, that you can access your entire library from the app and then just download what you want to listen to right now.
I was working on it through a PC and an MP3 player, and when I got my new smartphone, it's the only thing listening-wise that segued seamlessly with my new smartphone. I literally went from an MP3 player to a smartphone with not a moment's hesitation because of the app.
Yeah, you never need
now that's a question: does it stop if you're listening, say, on multiple systems? Is it like Netflix where it keeps track of where you were, or does it only do that by device?
I don't know. It will. It used to. To be honest with you, I don't listen to it any other way than my phone now.
Me neither.
But because my phone's always with me, so I just listen on my phone. But it used to be that when you synced it with its app, with a wire, it would. If you listen to someone on your computer and then you synced it back to your phone, it would remember where you were. So to be honest, I haven't tried that in a while, but it did used to work that way.
That's great.
But I literally don't plug my phone to the computer anymore anyway. Just everything comes on through the air, some kind of magic technology. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Also, one other geeky thing, I did get to see the new Die Hard movie.
Did you?
Which, okay, so it's not Bruce's best work. Not him as an actor. I just mean the movie itself.
Yeah.
Well, Die Hard is great for the one-liners, and I thought there was a surprising disappointment of one-liners. This one, it was okay. It had over-the-top action, which was fine, and the plot was actually surprisingly retro. It's the Russians again. Hello, but it was fun. It was a fun ride. But the best part of the film, I have to say, was the Lone Ranger trailer at the beginning. So I didn't manage.
I hadn't seen that.
I didn't see it at the Super Bowl thing or whatever that game people play with the pigskin. I didn't see that
during the Hobbit twice. I think
I didn't see it at the Hobbit. I didn't, but I did see it here for the first time, and I was really excited. Now I should say I'm going to date myself now, but I actually had the 12-inch tall Lone Ranger posable figure action toy.
Good old days.
I had him. I had just big as GI. Well, no, yes, doll.
I wasn't even in denial. He said doll.
Yeah, I had Silver, I had Tonto, and I had Scout. And shame on any of you who don't know who Scout is. Shame on all of you. I had it all. I love the Lone Ranger. I'm old enough to remember when cowboys were like the only show in town. So yeah, I would love to see the Lone Ranger again. And you know what else is freaking me out a little bit about this? Because the Lone Ranger, if you guys are old enough to remember this, when the first Superman movie starring Christopher Reeve released that summer, was a huge, exciting summer because that same summer they released a new Lone Ranger movie for the first time in like however many years. And this summer they're rebooting Superman and a new Lone Ranger movie the same time. That is freaky. God.
History repeating itself.
It is like Hollywood just read my mind.
It's a little bit of history repeating.
I don't even know that. Is that a song?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
You reminded me of with Bruce and Die Hard.
Yeah.
So that was one of the other movies I watched was Looper. Did you guys see this?
Oh, I just watched Looper. That was awesome. I did see Looper.
Yeah.
I just saw Looper. I liked it a lot.
The whole time travel paradox thing does not bear too close a scrutiny, but it's an awesome movie if you don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But I love how they even addressed that, right? In the
They did, yeah.
Right.
in the diner, they're like,
Yep.
listen, we're not going to get into time travel. We'll be sitting here drawing pictures with straws and napkins and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I really
The only plot hole I found in the whole movie, well, okay, the largest plot hole I had was, so the whole reason for the super complicated Looper system was that when you killed somebody, it was really hard to dispose of their body, right? So they loop them back in time and they'd shoot them. This isn't a reveal because they tell you this right in the first 30 seconds of the film. So they shoot you, they send you back in time, shoot you, and then they can dispose of the body back then in our times because, or a few years from now, because, right. So riddle me this. I'm not going to tell you who it is. There is a flash forward to the future and a woman is shot in the future.
Yeah.
Now, how did they deal with her?
They didn't. Because she was an accidental shooting.
Well,
so I'm sure they probably got in trouble. Somebody probably got in trouble.
Someone probably got in trouble for that. I guess that was one of the things. And then I was like, why don't they just take her shot body and stick it in the time travel thing? And then I was thinking, why don't they just shoot him and then time travel him and avoid the whole problem of having to hope the guy shoots them when they come through?
They do address that because you can't send a corpse through time travel.
Oh, did they? I must have missed that line.
They have to be alive in order for it to work.
Then what you want to do is mortally wound them and send them back in time. Like give them an injection, right?
And yet another. This was like again another one thing where you're like, Paradise, no, my brain hurts. But when they were torturing the guy, that was crazy.
I thought that was hilarious. I mean, well, hilarious. It was sickly hilarious, but it was kind of a cool.
It was awesome, and as long as you didn't look too closely at the common sense of it, it was just a really, really cool way for them to.
It was cool. It was cool.
Wrap that all together.
I liked it. I thought it was an interesting twist on the whole time thing.
Oh, I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, good achievement for bringing that up, Dan. That was a good call. All right, anything else?
Nope, that's achievements.
That is achievements.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Hoo-ah! Now it's time to talk about BattleFoam.com.
BattleFoam.com.
Now you're spending all this time and effort painting your models, putting them together. I mean, especially think about Infinity, for the love of God.
Oh, yeah.
It's forever to put these models together. How are you going to transport them? You're going to transport them in a shoebox? No! You're going to transport them in a little computer component box? No! You want to put them in the Cadillac of miniature transportation. And by that, we are talking about Battle Foam.
We are indeed. And I just got the great Descent Foam from Battle Foam. It is fantastic. Holds all the models from the original Descent set. And then I'm using and it's the exact same ties as their other pack trays. So I've got other pack trays I'm using for the smaller models, for the newer sets. And it just all works together so well. If you're like sitting around going, I got this giant miniature board game now. Because how many of you guys have these? There's these new hybrid games coming out all the time. Where are you going to put all the plastic? If you're going to paint it up, or even if you're just going to keep it around. Like I was throwing my Descent guys on baggies, and I realized their bases were warping because they're all jammed so tight in the box. That's no good. So Battle Foam protection models, whether it's for paint or just keep them from getting warped, whatever you want to do. And don't forget, they've got that awesome custom tray creator right there. You go to the website, click on that.
Is awesome.
You can just make a tray any size, any shape. You can get, not only can you put custom shapes to cut out for the miniatures, but you can get custom sizes of the trays also. So if you want to get a piece of foam that's the exact size of your board game box, insert it in there, and it's a rarer game or whatever, it's not a standard one they make, no problem. They can make that for you as well. Make sure you head over to battleform.com and check all that stuff out.
But the coolest thing we've seen is,
what's that?
Somebody found one of those old Millennium Falcon miniature, the action figure cases, and they gutted it, which of course is a sad sin in and of itself. But then they loaded it with custom made battle foam to hold the entire X-wing
miniature set
game from Fantasy Flight.
Yes, you-
including somehow they had a Millennium Falcon and a Slave One.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. So, yeah,
Cool.
definitely worth checking out. There's all the possibilities and creativity are really endless over at Battlefoam.
Absolutely.
And don't forget all the great branded bags too for all your favorite miniature games as well. Just check them out. Battlefoam.com. You won't be sorry.
And you say, hooah!
And now, what's in the news with the shout out? With unbiased reviews and real opinions by real gamers, find out what's happening without the PR fluff. GamingTrend.com. By gamers, for gamers. Cool. Let's see, and now the news. First, I got some news from Fantasy Flight Games. Let's see here. Well, if you've been to your local gaming store, you may have noticed that the Series 2 X-Wing models are finally out. That's right. Millennium Falcon, Slave 1, even the A-Wing, and the TIE Interceptor. They're going fast. Our local stores already are sold out. So get them while you can, boys. Also hot in the local stores now, Sedition Wars, reviewed last episode. Sedition Wars is now available in stores as well. Here we go. Spartan Games got a lot of interesting news and free stuff. Always exciting to see free stuff, and we as gamers love that. First of all, the Uncharted Seas rules are now completely available for free as a PDF download from the Spartan Games website. That's spartangames.co.uk. And also, Spartan Games has released an entirely new rule set for the Dystopian Wars land models called Armor Clash. And let's see, according to the press release, Armor Clash is an exciting new set of Victorian super science fiction wargaming rules designed to massively expand the theater of armored ground warfare within the hugely successful world of dystopian wars. The rules have been designed for a cinematic feel, giving the fast and furious gaming experience. Not sure what all that means. No problem. You can find out for yourself very easily because the PDF rulebook for Armor Clash is available for download for free as well. Sounds like they're going to give a nice quick and dirty land combat system for all those great Dystopian Wars land models, in case you wanted something a little less Navy feeling on the dirt. Let's see. Margaret Weiss Studios, they've announced they've got the rights to the Firefly RPG. This is pretty exciting news. Now, not a lot of news released about this yet in detail. However, some listeners have been asking, when we tweeted about this, is what's the difference? Didn't they do the Serenity RPG, and didn't you guys review that already? Yes, they did. However, the Serenity RPG was the rights through Universal for the Serenity movie. This now are the rights from Fox for the Firefly TV series. Both going to use the Cortex system. So it sounds like they're really using the same mechanics, but now they're going to have the rights to the artwork and the images, and they'll probably do a lot more of the stuff based on some of the things you saw in the series as well, and they'll be able to continue producing stuff. So that'll be great. Great stuff if you're a Firefly fan. In other licensing news, HeroClix have announced a new product line, and it is Hello Kitty.
K-I-T-T-Y, everybody say Hello Kitty. Who loves flowers in the sun or a party just for one? It's Kitty, Kitty, Kitty.
Oh, that's right. Who hasn't wanted to play a battle game with the lovable characters from Hello Kitty? Oh, I do it. Wakeland, really? Seriously, you want to play with Hello? Well, no, not really. I have a story to tell. All right, Wakeland, we'll make it quick. Come up to the mic here so you sound okay. All right, here we go. All right, well, thanks for having me on there, news guy. So here's the scoop. I mentioned this to my daughters. I'm like, seriously, a Hello Kitty Clicks game? How would that even work? Well, they're familiar with the Clicks concept, and they know that normally you click your bases to mark your damage. And my oldest daughter immediately came up with the entire rule set for the Hello Kitty game. She said, wait, I know, Dad. What they're going to do is the bases are going to mark your happiness level, and the theme will be they're at a Hello Kitty party, and some of the Hello Kitty characters will be throwing water balloons at other characters, and when you get hit, you're going to become unhappy, but if you have songs and things, you'll make them happier, and the person with the happiest Hello Kitty character is going to win. Really, Wakeland? That's it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I guess his daughter's figured out the entire rule set for Hello Kitty, the Clicks miniature game. And finally, March is definitely the month for video game fans. Apparently, usually the fall, the big game releases. This year, March is not messing around. A lot of big titles here. I know Wakeland's really excited for Tomb Raider. I already got the collector's edition right here. Yes, Wakeland already has the Tomb Raider edition, collector's edition there. Also, later this, I think it's next week, StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm, the second StarCraft 2 game. And it's a little confusing, but there you go. Also later this month, BioShock, as well as the SimCity reboot. A lot of people talking about that. And of course, Gears of War, the next installment of that, which I believe is a prequel, is also coming out. So if you're a video game fan, save up your money, find some time, and get gaming. And that's what's in the news.
Hi, my name is Jahan. I'm calling in for the New Year's resolution contest. I hope I'm not too late. My New Year's resolution this year, among many, is to get some of my non-gamer friends into gaming. I have a couple of entry-level board games like Zombicide I want to introduce them to, and then slowly build them up into miniature gamers. So that's my goal for this year. I hope it's good enough to get me a prize. Thank you for your show, and take care.
Hey, D6G, my name's Peter Gussis, and my resolution for this year is to design or finish designing and hopefully get picked up the board game I've been working on for over 5 years now. So it has gone through several stages. Just earlier this year, I went to Unpub 3, actually just this past weekend, and that went really well. Got some really good feedback from actually Dan at Myriad Games, so he definitely wants me to submit it online to them. So we're getting there. He said he feels like we're about 75% done. There is a good concept there. So really, 75% done. It's 5 years in, although we are on version 14.3 at this point. So 75% done. Hopefully that doesn't mean another 2 years. So hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, get this thing done, get it out there, get it published, and into everybody's hands, because I think they're all going to love it. Anyway, that's my resolution.
Hi guys, my name's Ben and I'm from Melbourne in Australia. My gaming related resolution this year is to run a games day and raise some money for the Royal Melbourne Children's Hospital. Thanks guys.
Hey, this is Michael Kale from Wisconsin. Been a listener of the show since episode number 2. I absolutely love it. My New Year's resolution is to hopefully finish my Crixen Cador, or Cador, depending on how you wish to mispronounce it, and maybe get more people into the game. Thanks for the great show, guys. Keep it up.
Hi, Russ and Craig. This is Ray Greenlee, and I was calling to say that my gaming resolution for this new year is to finally get into doing some miniature painting. I got Mice and Mystics last year, and those little figures just demand it. So hopefully I can get into it, although I have zero artistic talent, so I'm not setting my hopes too high. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the show. Have a good day.
Hey, D6G, this is Trevor here. I've been listening to your podcast for, a while, and it is fan-freaking-tastic. I'm just started up my own podcast fairly recently, and I'm having some really, really annoying technical issues, and were it not for your podcast as inspiration, I would probably quit now. So I want to thank you guys for all the great work that you do, and I hope you keep it up. Thanks.
Hey, D6G. This is Andrew Banner, also known on the Deck forums as BBB. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So, Colin, wanted to say thank you for putting on an awesome show. I had some medical issues last week, was laid up in the emergency room a couple of times, and did pass some of that time by listening to the latest episode of the D6 Generation. So I wanted to call in for the contest and give some resolutions for this year. I actually started by culling some of my collection. I am getting rid of a ton of comic books, possibly a little ton, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll have to do some math on that. But I'm going to reduce everything that I have to just things that I would actually want to read again, and try and get rid of everything else to possibly fund some more hobby projects. And another resolution would be hobby projects. I am going to try and just do more with the hobby this year. I spent most of last year working on renovating a house, so did almost nothing hobby-wise. And this year, looking to change that. I already started off this year by actually working on some terrain projects that have been sitting around the house for years, and had my 4-year-old daughter help out with some of that. So that was a good way to incorporate family time and gaming time. So, all right, guys. Well, hope I win the contest, and hope you guys are having a great day. So thank you very much for putting on an awesome show. Keep up the good work.
Hi, Russ, Craig, and whoever's lucky at the third chair today. My name is Jeff Carter, and my resolution for 2013 is to play both Agricola and Twilight Imperium. I want to hit both the yin and the yang of the gaming spectrum this year. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Russ. Hey, Craig. It's Ben M. And my 2013 resolutions are to cull down my gaming collection by at least 5 games, because my wife needs somewhere to sleep. and to attend at least 3 cons because I don't have kids yet, so I've really got no excuse not to be getting out there. Thanks. Have a great year, guys.
Hey, it's Ian Arvizo, known as Spooky to some. Nothing fancy this time, just my New Year's resolution. In my Harry Potter under the stairs closet, I've got these 3 huge Tupperware boxes, like the kind you store Christmas stuff in, of things that over the years I've looked at and said, this will be great for, this conversion, or this will be great to, put in a building someday, and I can do that. And by gosh, I want this year to be that someday. So my resolution is this year, knock out some of those projects and actually turn them into something worthwhile other than, something that takes up space and has mass. So, once again, love the show, love you guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
And now we're excited to talk about our friends at Conquistador Games.
Conquistador!
Yes. And as you've heard us mention before several times now, of course, they just wrapped up a couple months ago the Tomorrow Kickstarter for their great new game in the near future when population explosions have happened around the world. And what is a despot leader of a country to do? Well, he is going to, of course, work on ways to, kill people off serendipitously. Is that right? What's the word I'm looking for?
Precipitously?
No, not serendipitous. Inconspicuously. That's what I was looking for. Yes. Like, an accidental nuclear explosion. Oops. Oh, just call up a whole state. That's a shame. Things like that. But also, the new science is now out, ready to rock. You can get it online at cqgames.com. And Craig, would it be fair to say there are scientists in this game?
It would not only would it be fair to say there are scientists in this game, Russ, but it would be fair to say they've got the scientists in this game.
Oh, yeah? Like, name a couple.
Well, there's Isaac Newton, you may recognize.
Right.
Johann Kepler, maybe somebody you've heard of before. Galileo Galilei, and others.
Exactly. Basically, build out tech trees, get ahead. And remember, all the games at Conquistador Games focus on these things. They focus on theme first. They want to make sure the game is thematic as well as interesting. And there's going to be a story going on there. How do these scientists make these discoveries? How do they go forward? Innovative mechanics, things that are just not the same as any other game you played. And of course, high quality production values, great artwork. It's going to look nice. It's going to have a good feel.
And don't forget, there's the new science bonus scientists: Edison, Tesla, Curie, Einstein, and Darwin.
That's exactly right. So head on over to cqgames.com for all the latest information and to order the new science.
Conquistador Game.
After our game reviews, you'll feel like you played the game 100 times. After our interviews, you'll feel like you've known some of the biggest names in the gaming industry for years. After a single episode, you'll feel like the time just flew by. And once the headache clears, you'll know you'll never need another gaming podcast again.
The D6 generation, born to game.
Welcome back. And now, Dan's on the show as usual. How you doing, Dan?
Hello. I'm doing well. I'm a little tired, but glad to be here.
And you're tired.
That squeaky radio voice is sounding a little ragged, Dan. You've been shilling a little bit, I think.
Well, I stayed up till 4:30 in the morning doing emails, and then I got up at 7 o'clock. So, it's just I've just prepped my recording voice for you.
Nice.
The gaming world doesn't conquer itself. It's funny that way.
Doesn't. And well, Dan, thank you for taking time from that busy schedule from your current trade show junket, if you will.
Wait a minute. Did you say trade show?
I did say trade show. See, we've talked about gaming conventions, but those, Dan, now correct me if I'm wrong here, but gaming conventions are not the same thing as a trade show.
That's correct. So trade shows are typically not open to the public, and they are primarily just for members of the trade, hence the name. So they're a place for the trade to show each other things like advanced copies of, say, a Firefly board game, stuff like that. But it's not for customers to come in and buy said Firefly board game. It's just for us to tease them and show things off and do business meetings.
So and we thought it would be fun to talk about that and kind of get the inside scoop here from someone in the biz, a tradesman himself here, Dan, and learn more about how these work. So is it game publishers showing games to other game publishers? Is it game publishers showing games to buyers? Is it all the above?
Yeah,
Like, what's
so
going
it's-
on?
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. I mean, the core of most trade shows is publishers showing games to buyers. So especially like Toy Fair, which is where I am now in New York, it's you want to land clients. So you might be meeting with Target, Barnes & Noble, independent toy stores, independent game stores, all that sort of thing. That's kind of the core of the show. But you have all these kind of tangential related things. You have manufacturer reps. So like, oh, well, you are all publishers and you need to make products, and we're a factory from China and we make products. So you have them there. And then you have press, who are just there to kind of promote things and cover things from the news angle. And then you have like special guests. Every once in a while you'll have like, people that do seminars. But kind of the core experience of a trade show is to have some actual business happen. That's what you're aiming to do. And usually, it's kind of weird, it depends on the show, but usually there's not a lot of business that transacts at the show. So it's not like I walk up to a booth and I say, give me 10,000 games. And they say, okay, what kind of price do you want to make? And then you negotiate.
Right.
It's really more you're getting used to it. You gather information, you make contacts, you do introductions. You might talk kind of broadly about details. But unless you have a scheduled meeting with somebody, like you were planning on meeting with them to discuss a particular topic or particular deal, usually you're just gathering information, and then you follow up in the weeks following the trade show, and you sort of make a deal based on the information you had there. So as far as vendors, people that are there, it's really publishers showing to the customers, who in this case are buyers for stores. And then you also have these sort of the rest of the crew, which is the press and the manufacturers and associated folks.
So the guys with the booths, in this case, the guys who have this big booth set up with banners and everything, that would be mostly publishers doing that. And people who provide services to publishers, and the guys walking around the aisles would generally be buyers and press. Is that basically somewhere?
Correct, yeah. You wouldn't have, so if you go to Gen Con, you're going to have publishers and you're going to have stores.
Right.
And you don't have stores here because there's nobody to sell to. Like they're there to buy. They're the customers in that scenario. So the publishers are just there. It's also different because you might be used to like a bigger setup. No, it's a huge show. Like Toy Fair is a huge show.
Yeah.
But it's because there's so many different people. It's not the pile of games that's there. It's just like we brought one of each game. Because you don't need to have more than one of each game because you're just showing samples. That's all you're doing.
I see.
So it's much more about demoing and talking with folks and that sort of thing.
So the Fantasy Flight booth, so even though, like, for example, like the Toy Fair that you're at now in New York has a much higher attendance than, say, a Gen Con, the Fantasy Flight booth at Toy Fair would be smaller because it would just have little samples and they're explaining their products, right? It's not like they have a giant booth with massive numbers of gaming tables to demo things and huge amounts of product to sell, right?
Right. So when we said hi to Brian and Molly at the Fantasy Flight booth here at the show, so shout out to them. They and John, who came in a day late due to the storm. Yeah. But when we said hi to them, they have like I think it was like a 30 by 10, so like kind of 3 booths is what that is. Where at Gen Con they might have, they have like half the hall. It feels like, but, 40 booths or something like that. Right. So here it's just, and it's also it differs based on where you are. So like this trade show is about more mass market, trade, toy stores, right? So they're not bringing Android, they're not bringing, Netrunner because they don't really, that's not the market. So you, in the Fantasy Flight booth, you see all Game of Thrones, Star Wars, it's all licensed stuff because that's what they're going to sell. And then they also bring like, hey, that's my fish because it's a, kid and
Kids
family
game.
game.
Right.
So you bring your product mix and you feature different things based on the audience, based on the customer. And the same applies for consumer conventions, but at a trade show it's more precise. You kind of know what you're doing. So yeah, there are lots of people there, but it also feels it's never as crowded as the Javits Center here in New York where it takes place is huge, so it's multiple levels and they have huge halls, and so but it never feels, you never get that like I'm trying to walk through the crowd and I can't make it. There's plenty of space to move because there's just not as many, I don't know, there's just more space, I guess. There's not as many people crowded into a given area.
Oh, that's interesting. What is the attendance like at something like Toy Fair? Do you know? Do you know the numbers?
What is the age or the attendance overall?
Yeah.
I feel like it was something like 75,000.
Well, that's big.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, but I don't know off the top of my head. It's over 100,000 products according to their website here.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's thousands of attendees is what they say, and it really at this show it doesn't matter so much the volume of attendees, it matters who's there, right? You want to talk to big clients, and you also want to see hot properties if you're a retailer and you want to find out what's going to be big. Because the interesting thing, like you would think, okay, it's February, so maybe they're buying stuff for the summer, but like right now they're starting to make plans for the holiday season in October, November, December. And because you might have like, oh yes, I want this game, I want 5,000, so you need to manufacture a special print run for me that has my packaging in the way that I want it, that sort of thing for bigger stores.
Like Target.
And even for smaller stores, a lot of stuff that like we were showing off at the Game Salute booth, we were telling people like, yep, this is going to be out, in the summer. This is going to be out for the holiday season. That's pretty much what you're aiming for, is the holidays, for the most part.
Now, let me ask you this, because I'm really curious how, I've been really fascinated by how many of the big box stores now, like your Targets and your Barnes & Nobles, are starting to carry a lot more of the hobby games, from a wide variety of publishers. And you mentioned before that you're going to, like someone like a Fantasy Flight or you guys at Game Salute are going to think about targeting, most of the buyers are going to be more mass market. Do you find though that more and more of the buyers are, I don't want to say educated, because they're all obviously very smart at what they do. I mean more like, are they more knowledgeable about the more unique hobby games, and do they come in saying, show me this more exotic game, or they're real like, do you feel like that's changing lately, or how does that work?
I had some interesting discussions with people about that, because there were inventors, we would call them designers, but inventors of toys and games who had been in the industry for 40 years. And so they would say, man, this industry is so much different now. The volumes are down as far as, what they're doing. But what that is like, so Hasbro and Mattel aren't selling, they're still selling a lot, right? But like Hasbro's toy sales were down like 17%, year over year.
Yeah, right.
But then like Wizards of the Coast, which is a Hasbro subsidiary, is doing really well, right? They're buoying the entire games business, right, within Hasbro. And so you do get a little bit of that, but I mean, primarily, like, you have people that walk around, they're like, oh, we're a gift store. It's like, we're only looking for nostalgia type stuff. So it's all sorts of different folks. And some of them, I mean, you have game stores that are here too. So they're like, oh yeah, we carry this, typical, places that carry gamer type games. But I don't think in general, it's primarily like, at our booth, it was, Princess Bride, right? Because we just announced the Princess Bride license. And so they're like, oh yeah, that's what they see, right? And like we had, a bunch of games there. We had, I don't know, like 40 games or something like that. And they're like, Princess Bride. And like they look over the rest of the shelf and they're like, oh, this one looks cute. This one looks cute, like kids games, that sort of thing, like Goblins Rule, Fairies Rule, or Cartoona. But then like they get to Alien Frontiers or Z-Apocalypse or something, and they're just like, yeah,
eyes glaze over.
That's not really for me.
It's funny because
but
go ahead. Well, that sort of explains to me why they make so many of these bad games with the licenses, because it sounds like a lot of buyers just come in and their eyes light up at a license and they don't even really get to the mechanics. It's just like, oh, you've got a new game with license X that I know sells, so I want to buy, Princess Bride Monopoly kind of thing. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the discouraging thing from a licensing standpoint, that's what you're trying to avoid, right? That if you're doing Spartacus the game, you want it to be a good game. What we want it to be a good game. Like, they don't care. I mean, as a store, if it sells, then I'm happy.
Right.
That's the business, right? They don't really care if it's a good game, but ideally you want it to be a combination of a good game and a kind of true to the license sort of thing. So that's what I mean. There have been other Princess Bride games that, in our opinion, they're not. I'm a huge fan of the movie, so when we got the license, we were like, oh, we want to make a great series of games that really feels like the movie. And we didn't feel like that the other options had done that. And the same thing applies for, the same inventor that I was talking to, they did a kids game, from Hasbro, which is out of print now. But that's pretty much how things work at Hasbro, right? You do it for 2 years and then it's done. But they said, we got this game, they license it from them and they're going to publish it. And then they're like, okay, now let me go to Disney and get the Disney license, because that's how I'm going to sell it. Because if it was just a game, and you see a ton of these companies there, they're like, oh, I've got this great game. It's, we saw our friends over at Gold Brick Games who are right from New Hampshire there. And they have a new game, Rumble Pie, which is like a real-time game. They do Perpetual Commotion, which is kind of like if you're familiar with Dutch Blitz or any speed type of card game, that's the feel of it. And Rumble Pie is also, in that family, so to speak. But
they're like, yeah, it's Rumble Pie, right? And it's a great game, and they're showing it off, they're demoing it, and it's a fun game, right? No doubt. But like Hasbro would look at it and be like, well, we need to sell 500,000 units.
Right.
I don't think we can do that just on on the game that's just a basic kind of kids game, because there's a million of them.
Right.
I mean, we had a guy very frankly come up to us and say, how are your games different than any of these other games? Because like it's just a product to him. It's not a
right.
Because we're across the aisle from like dot to dot puzzles and what the heck was it? There was wristbands that have like you press them and they light up and
right.
you know what they're like bejeweled stuff. And they have
name for those.
Say that again.
Do you have a name for those? I want to write it down. Nothing. I'm kidding.
Oh, I don't remember. It was bejeweled bands or something.
Okay.
But
Move on. Nothing to see here. Move along.
So they have rows, like they'll have, this huge hall and like 2 rows will be board and card games, right? And so they try and put people there. But then you've also got big companies like Hasbro has like their own section. Mattel has an entire, like the size of Gen Con, that type of room that's just theirs. So I might be overstating that a little bit, but it gets you the scope of it, right? It's this huge area. And then you also have people like USAopoly, and you've got like big companies that do licenses and they do that. And that's what a license, like it's more expensive, but it gives you a lot of clout because it gives you instant accessibility, right? It's same thing with every sort of franchise. Well, I want to get a hamburger. Well, there's White Castle, and I know their hamburgers aren't very good, but I know what I'm getting when I go to White Castle. Right? It's not, I'm going to Joe's Burger Shack, and maybe it'll be awesome. I don't know. We just went to a place tonight called Salt and Fat. That was the name of the restaurant, Salt and Fat.
Was it good? Was it both salty and fatty?
Queens. It was. It's kind of like a small plate, not like what tapas style, but more small plate food, and it was very salty and fatty. And they give you popcorn as the thing, but but we don't know like if that place is going to be good. It could be terrible, right? And so you look at some reviews or whatever, but that's the same with branding with licenses. Is that's what people are looking for. They want it to sell. Somebody explained it this way. They were a gift store, and they said, "Oh, we do really high volume. Like we sell a ton of a given thing, and it has to sell itself. It has to be instantly sellable, so people know what it is." And that's what we got with one of the Princess Bride games we're doing. Is called Prepare to Die. So it's a classic game, line, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And so it's kind of a party game based on that. But the cover, I think you can see this on the website, but the cover it has like a kind of "Hello, my name is" like name tag on it. And so like it's a picture of Inigo Montoya with his sword out, right? And it says "Hello, my name is." That has a little tag, and then it says "Prepare to die." And so people just look at that and they're like, "Oh, I get it." Like it's a game by the Princess Bride, and it's like a party game, and you fill in the names. And they don't really understand how it plays, but they don't need to. It sells itself. And that's what a lot of the bigger places are looking for. Is if they're in a mall or if they're in a really high traffic area, they just don't have time. This is especially driven home when you are in Manhattan, where things are just going really quickly, and like the spaces. We were at dinner last night, and we were at a table that was the size of the desk that I'm at, which is like maybe 6 feet by 3 feet.
Wow.
And it fits 6 people. So you're like sitting there like, okay, everything's very, small. And so in those sorts of environments, and that's what a mass, store is, they're looking for a particular thing that can sell a lot. And that's not everybody that's there, but that's kind of the gist of this particular trade show. Now, not all trade shows are like that. For instance, the Gamma Trade Show, which is out in Las Vegas in March, that we're going to, is more of a hobby game show. So it's a totally different feel to that trade show.
So Gamma, Craig, do you have a question?
No.
Oh, sorry.
It's intriguing to me that there's just a more hobby specific trade show, and that piqued my interest. That's all.
So as you mentioned, Dan, there's different trade shows with different audiences that attend. So New York sounds like it's sort of a big. A lot of your buyers from your main store chains and that kind of stuff are there, and then Gamma is what? It's more targeted at hobby retail owners, because that's what Gamma is made up of, right? That's their group. So you're looking more at hobby store owners like yourself, who own a small business that's really targeted at hobby gaming.
Yeah, and this is where you would have all the classic companies that you would think of as gaming companies. Games Workshop and Wizards of the Coast and, Gale Force 9 and AEG and Fantasy Flight. Those are like Fantasy Flight is a impressive booth at Toy Fair, but it's really dwarfed by these massive booths because it's not really their show. Where like at a show like Gamma, they have a bigger presence, right? Because they're a bigger name within that smaller market, so to speak. So that's much more of a gamer show, and that's where you actually get people that, for instance, at Toy Fair, if you're going to demo, quote unquote, a product, right? It might be like, oh, I have this crossbow that shoots like sucker bolts, and they stick to things, and I pull it and I shoot it, and I'm like, oh, that looks neat, and that's it. Like you have 10 seconds, 30 seconds to pitch the product. And so and it's not like you don't have more time, like you couldn't take 5 minutes and tell them about it. It's just that they're not really interested in more than that. They're just like, it has to immediately kind of grab them. But that's toys. Where at Gamma, it might be like, oh, I really want to know the details. How's this game play? What I want to demo it. They do a lot of game nights there where you actually you play games and all that sort of stuff. And you don't get that at kind of a more mass market show. It's just a different type of product. But yeah, Gamma is definitely much more of a hobby industry show. And then Nuremberg, which I went to in Germany 2 weeks ago. I guess.
I want to ask you about Nuremberg because I would imagine that Nuremberg would be. Now, I would just guess it'd be less about licenses and more about Euro style gaming, since gaming's more mainstream in Europe. Is that how it is, or what's it like?
I mean, it's just a different. Like, there's still a lot of licensing. They call everything licensing over there. So there's still a lot of licensing, but it's, like a game that might be huge in Germany. So like, Pegasus Spiele has a game called Die Zwerge, which is just the dwarves. And it's based on a book by Marcus Brand or somebody. I forget the author's name. And maybe that's the game designer, but it's a very famous book. Like, it is the most famous fantasy novel in Germany.
Oh.
And so like, that's a license, right? But you look at it as a gamer, and like if that got published in the US, you just be like, yeah, it's a game about dwarves that go on adventures, and that's it. That's all you know.
Right.
So they do have big licenses. I mean, they have Hasbro and all that stuff over there too. But it's definitely more of, obviously there's more Euro style games. There are big companies like Cosmos that does Settlers Catan, that sort of thing, where they just have Euro style games, and it's a totally different thing. It's like you can have a toy, quote unquote, a game for 3-year-olds by Haba, let's say, and it's a $50 game, and they don't bat an eye at that. Where if there was a $50 game in the U.S., people would be like, "Are you crazy? I'm not spending that much money on my kid for a toy."
Right.
So that's the sort of disparity there, and obviously it's much more international as well. I mean, Toy Fair is international too. It's probably I believe it's the biggest like toy show in the world. But Nuremberg is much more of like a game and toy show. So they have some toy stuff, they have models, but it's not nearly the breadth of what you'd find here. And there's like a hall that's like games. There's a couple halls that are games. So you have a few more. The saturation feels a little more intense there, I guess.
Oh, interesting. So Toy Fair is more toys, where game is a subcomponent of that. So you'd see a lot of Nerf and all that kind of craziness at Toy Fair. Whereas at Nuremberg, it's more game centric.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you see games increasing in each of those categories. So you see like, oh yeah, it's toys are just games are a subcategory of toys. That's how the world at large considers them.
Yeah.
From an industrial standpoint. But at these shows, you see more and more pop up. Like, oh, this is a toy company, but they're doing a game now. Like the game might be terrible, but they're doing a game because games are, growing a little bit, in the mass.
And
what's that, Craig?
Yep.
Never mind. You just keep talking, you guys.
Just jump in when you feel proper, Craig. It's your show too, Craig. Just jump in when you feel ready.
It's okay. Sometimes it happens. Right. Dan's the one who's away. I'm in a different time zone. It's okay.
So you were saying, Dan, about the games becoming more mainstream?
Well, yeah, it's just people are aware, like Barnes & Noble expanding their games selection, right? Well, they're doing that because they need to make up revenue from their loss of sales to ebooks, right? While the Nook is making them some money, they need to sell other stuff. And so people are going, oh, games are doing well. And that's really trends with the economy down spiraling over the last 5 years, I guess, because it's a better value for games.
Right.
That's the feel of it, and it's less like you buy a toy, you play with it, you buy another toy. We all have kids, and so that's how it works, right? You don't get a lot of value out of that necessarily. Like they'll have favorite toys they play with a lot, but a game is a different type of investment from an entertainment standpoint.
Right, unless you're me and I buy one game, play it 3 times, and get another game.
Yeah, but you played it 3 times. Like you didn't play with it for 5 minutes. I mean, unless it's Crokinole or something, but.
Right.
Which you should get because that's a fun one. But yeah, so I mean, so they all have very different feel. I mean, obviously the biggest feel is that like Nuremberg is very international. So everybody as an English as first language speaker, you're speaking with people that speak English as a second language, and they're from Germany and France and Italy and all over the place, Hungary and Romania, and their English is far better than any of those languages. But there is a difficulty in communicating. Where at a U.S. show, especially like at GAMA, it's almost all U.S. companies. You'll have a few, like you'll have a Russian company, you'll have a French company, you'll have some Canadian companies, but it's mostly a U.S.-centric show. So that's just each trade show has kind of a different bent, and there are all sorts of different shows. Like these are just 3 that we're talking about here, but
right.
There's tons of different trade shows, even within the games industry. There's Dallas Toy Fair, which is a closed door show where you just do meetings. You actually can't browse around a hall. You just schedule meetings and you go there and you meet and you talk about business, and that's what you do. So there's all sorts of different trade shows, but as far as they impact games, it's effectively publishers interacting with customers who are, in this case, are stores who are then going to sell it to their customers who are gamers.
Neat. Now, so we've been given sort of a broad overview of how these things work, but let's get into the nitty gritty. So you were just at Nuremberg, you were just at Toy Fair. Let's start with Nuremberg. What were some of the hot things you saw there? Both like, is there trends you're seeing more of, and then also specifics? What were some cool things you saw going on there that were like, well, that's going to be a big deal when it comes out?
So there's less of that over the last few years. There's less like hot stuff. There's less things that you go to the show and you say, well, that's the game of the show, right? Like that's it. It's done.
Why is that, Dan? Is it showing up someplace other than trade shows, or have there not been those moments just in the last couple of years?
No, I think that primarily it used to be trade shows. You would reveal it, but this has been over the last like 10, 15 years. This isn't recent. But so if you used to go to a trade show, for instance, you would go to the GAMA trade show, and you would see, you guys remember Mech Warrior from WizKids?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So you remember that giant battle carrier, whatever it was, the dropship?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I do.
The huge thing you could put your mechs in. It was the giant thing. So like you would go to GAMA, and you would go to that was like a breakfast you would go to. You'd go to a special breakfast, and you have to have a ticket, and you would get a dropship at your table. Like you would get it to take with you. It was like a giveaway. And that would be a big announcement at the meal, right? It was an announcement from the fact, oh, hey, we're releasing Shadowrun Duels, or we're doing High Stakes Drifter, or whatever the latest thing that they're doing is. And then they give you this stuff. And what happens then, it used to be, oh, that's really cool. And then like maybe like a day or two later, kind of the world at large found out about it. But now it's like, okay, I'm going to tweet a picture of the Firefly board game, and now like everybody knows about that, even if they're not at the show. Right. So that changed things a bit as far as when announcements are made. So now companies are more controlling about when they do it. So Fantasy Flight, for instance, at Gen Con, a big consumer show, might say, we want to unveil, the Star Wars role-playing game. That's what we're going to unveil it at Gen Con. We're not going to unveil it at the GAMA trade show. Because if we do, it kind of gets less impact. Yeah. Because people are just going to read about it online. They're not going to be like, oh man, there's 20,000 people that see that in person and are really excited about the Star Wars RPG. And so they'll tell a bunch of other people, where if you announce it to 300 retailers, no, it's not that exciting, right? They're going to tell people, but that's what I think has happened over the last decade.
So you bet you get better buzz, because before the media controlled the outlet. Now that every man with a phone is the outlet, you get better exposure at a larger. Even it's kind of ironic, because even though the actual attendance at some of these trade shows is larger than Gen Con, like Toy Fair, you get better exposure because you got more target. Your audience for someone like Fantasy Flight is more targeted at Gen Con. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And Nuremberg is the same way. So Nuremberg has 79,000 trade visitors, which is basically like stores and whatnot. And then there's 2,700 exhibitors. That's way more than
something like Gamma, right? And even Essen, which is the equivalent of Germany, or the biggest consumer show there in Germany, Essen has a lot more buzz around it, right? So people will be like, yeah, I'm going to release this at Essen. You don't release it at Nuremberg. You preview stuff at Nuremberg.
Right.
You preview stuff at Toy Fair. You don't release anything there because it's not as big a sort of event in the industry.
Yeah. Now I've always been a little confused about this. So is Essen a trade show, or is Essen a convention, or what's the difference between Essen and Nuremberg, really?
Nuremberg is more like Toy Fair. It's a trade show. There are no consumers, and it's just business. Okay. That's what it is. Essen is not the equivalent of Gen Con, but it is like Gen Con in that it is a consumer show. The difference is it's actually bigger as far as attendance because lots of families come, and it's like it's a huge German thing. So it's like, okay, we're going to take the day off of school and we're all going to go to Essen and we're going to play games, and it's just a huge show, but it is a consumer show. So that's the sort of analog there.
Oh, cool. So you said that it's kind of becoming less and less normal to see really exciting news come out of these from a gamer point of view. Did anything big come out though? I mean, obviously the big news that just broke literally from Toy Fair was Gale Force 9 officially announcing that they had the Firefly license for their board games. And by the way, while I got you on the show, let me ask you this. Now, what about someone else just announced they had the Firefly license?
Yes.
About Toy Vault?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is it? Do they have two different? Is Toy Vault like only tabletop games, whereas Gale Force 9 is hobby games, or is it confusion? Do we have another Merchants of Venus thing going on here, Dan? What's going down?
No, there's nothing like that. So the Toy Vault does a lot of plushes. They're doing like Firefly plush pillows and stuff like that. They're also they did Monty Python in the past. They did like Pythonopoly. Mm-hmm. So they do more like lighter games like that. They're doing some hobby board games too. I mean, obviously they do hobby board games. They did like a Godzilla game. They've done stuff like Richard Borg's Abaddon. Mm-hmm. So they do gamer games. And they're doing that for Firefly as well. They announced it first. I guess this was maybe 3 weeks ago or something. And then Gale Force 9 announced it as well. The reason for that is that traditionally licenses are non-exclusive, even in a tabletop space. And so probably what happened there is that the licensor was looking at it saying, oh, well, these guys do more like kind of novelty stuff and they do more lighter games, right? And we feel like Gale Force 9 with the Spartacus license, right, is more of a sort of adult. They do more miniatures. That's a different category. That's the sort of logic there, is my guess.
Okay, so it's good news from both point of view, though. So basically, one of the big things that kind of popped from both this time period, as you mentioned, these shows are tied a lot to licenses, is that we now know there's a push for licensed Firefly products, probably based on the 10-year anniversary kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting. I was just checking that because I was like, did it come out in 2003 or did it come out in 2002? So it came out in 2002, actually, as September. And so it's the 11th anniversary or something. But basically, it's like, it's always been a cult classic show, right? I mean, it has 14 episodes and people treat it like it's The Wire, right? It has a ridiculously fanatical following, or The Sopranos or something that had this huge long run, and it only has 14 episodes.
Right.
So it kind of is a much bigger license than what it appears, but it's also a very small license. I mean, you've got other licenses that are huge, DC, Marvel, Disney, that sort of stuff. So it's nowhere near anything like that. It just happens that at this particular instant in the hobby games market, so people said, well, we love Firefly. Like, the people that get these licenses are not, they love Firefly just like everybody else, right? They're not going, we're going to leverage the Firefly license in order, because it's, it doesn't even have a new movie, right? Like Serenity was back in 07 or 09 or whatever that was. So I think this is more just a fandom thing, and it just happened that people were getting to it at the same time.
Right.
But that's obviously, the companies may not be happy about that. I imagine that since Gale Force 9 had announced second that they were aware that Toy Vault was, had the license. Right. But I don't know that Toy Vault knew that Gale Force 9 was getting the license. So they may not be happy about that. But from a licensor standpoint, from Fox's standpoint, they would say, yeah, no, that's, they're separate enough, and they're not technically, it's not exclusive. So they could license the board game. And look how many Star Trek licenses there are, right?
Oh, sure, right. Games. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Playroom Entertainment here at the show was showing off Hobbit and Lord of the Rings games. And it's like, okay, so that's Cryptozoic, Fantasy Flight. I
I can't even keep track of them.
Games Workshop has a license, yeah.
Yeah, Games Workshop, and like some of them are the movie,
Right.
and then some of them are the books, and but you'll have multiple licenses in the same category from the books or from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not so much the issue in licensing. It's just you have cool, like that's a cool like Firefly announcement is cool for us, right?
Right, as gamers,
but
right.
for like at Toy Fair it was nothing. Right. It
Right.
was just like, oh, whatever. Like, and then right behind it, there's Skylanders Swappable. And like that's the big thing at the show.
So what was the big things at the show? So if you looked around, like what were the things people were just like falling over themselves to see? Was it like things like Skylanders? What were the mainstream things that you're like, oh, that's going to be big next year, even if it was known? Like Skylanders is just more of the same, really. But
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually get around the whole place because it's huge. It's like 4 levels, and I was mostly at my booth. But I did walk around briefly, and I didn't see a lot of like really new stuff. It was a lot of. I mean, it's like it's Avengers 6 or whatever. That's what they're gonna. That is safe from a licensing standpoint because that's why you get a license, right? Because you're going to sell a certain number of units just based on the license, or that's the perception.
Right.
So you have a lot of kind of combo licenses, like it's Lego and Star Wars.
Right.
Boom, it's Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
Right.
And that's where it felt like there were innovative little things, but mostly it felt like there were 2 types of companies. There were the companies that had a huge big license presence, and they weren't really doing anything innovative. I actually heard from several people that the bigger companies, the really big companies, they used to take more independent designs, and now they're not. Now they're just doing Words with Friends, which is basically Scrabble.
Which
is really weird because like they license Words from Friends, which is basically Scrabble, back from another company so that they can then publish it. But there's nothing innovative about that, right? It's just like Words for Friends, the Bejeweled series of games that they announced, a tabletop series. It's like they know it's going to be successful to some degree because the property is already successful.
Right.
So that's I didn't see anything that was. I mean, for me, Firefly is exciting. Obviously, for me, Princess Bride. We announced that just before the show.
Yeah, that's exciting.
But that was exciting for me. But that's a very limited perspective from my
Right,
angle.
sure.
Most people are like, oh, Princess Bride, that's cute. It was like
Right.
it's the 40th anniversary of the book next year. It was the 25th anniversary of the movie last year. But it's not. It's a sort of classic license, but it's not like it's not Skylanders or Star Wars or whatever.
Right. Great. Well, that's great. Dan, that's some fantastic insight. Craig, do you have any last questions for Dan before we move off the vast and exciting topic of trade shows?
No, it is indeed vast, however, and exciting.
Vast. Yeah, I didn't realize it was so license centric. That's really interesting. That was something I did not know.
Well, what's interesting to me is that, and this is what I see as a trend, is that that's always been the case in mass and trade. But when you get to hobby, that's becoming more and more of a thing. That licenses are becoming more. Look at even the progress of somebody like Fantasy Flight. They had a couple licenses, StarCraft, Warcraft, Game of Thrones, and then they got Lord of the Rings, and now they have Star Wars, and Game of the Thrones is huge, and Cryptozoic just announced 2 more Walking Dead games,
right.
And they announced an Archer game. So there are companies that in the tabletop space, in the area where we usually live, that are actively, aggressively pursuing licenses, and that's a relatively new development from what I see.
Yeah, do you think it's harder to get them? Because I was really amazed that Gale Force 9, who I guess they've been pretty good with licenses in general, even before they ventured into board games, because they always had that. They've had deals with Wizards of the Coast now for D&D for a while, and some of the licenses like that. But getting a license like Spartacus or even Firefly, it seems like and then it being their very first adventure into board games seems like. It seems to me that would be hard. You'd almost have to be more of a proven board game manufacturer. Is it becoming easier to get licenses, or is it just?
No, it's just the companies are deciding to spend the money on it.
Oh, it's just a matter of how much money.
I don't think it was a coincidence that their first license was for a premium cable show.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's not like NBC dumped money on them.
That's true.
It wasn't, they weren't getting the license for, I don't even know what's popular on TV these days. But, some hot show.
kids are watching.
Whatever those kids are
The
watching.
kids are watching. Oh, it was like Once Upon a Time or something.
Like,
right?
or Craig's favorite, Revolution. It wasn't like a Revolution.
Yeah.
Deal, you know.
Oh man, actually there was. That was the hottest announcement.
Oh
It
God.
was that Revolution. All the games coming from Cryptozoic and Fantasy Flight are all Revolution themed
With
now.
muskets, right? With extra
And
muskets
so
in
that's
the box.
all they're going to be making. And actually, all Spartan Games just announced today that all they're doing is Revolution minis. So it's
Well,
very exciting.
All I have to say about that is thank God for Kickstarter then. 'Cause
At least you'll have something interesting.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that it came from Star, and not even like one of the premiums, but Stars, which is not one of the premiums.
Right.
And then the game was so good and did so well. Now look what they're doing.
Right.
And that's what you build on is licensed success, right? So the reason they got the opportunity to do Spartacus, right, is that they're an existing company. They can prove that they have brand, and then they can also say, oh, and we've worked with Wizards of the Coast, we do Dungeons and Dragons, we have some experience with this in the marketplace, not just like personally they have experience with it, but they have some experience and some trajectory. And so that first license is always the trickiest one to get. When we were talking about the Princess Bride license, I was like, let's see if I could get any license, what would I get, right? And Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies, and I was like, I would get that. And well, it's not really like a hot license, right? Like, it's not, people are knocking down the door, but it's a really good license because it's one that I really like. And those are the ones where you actually find the best turnout. I mean, if you play a lot of licensed games, even in the trade industry, right, they're terrible. Right. And so that's not what you want. That's not what a licensor wants either. They want a critically acclaimed game, right. Something like Spartacus, where it was like, oh, this is great, we're very well received, and they also want you to pay them money. And those are the basic two elements of it, right? So as long as you've got both, then you open up more opportunities. And so as long as I'm all for those licensed games, as long as they do a good job, as long as they are fun to play and the people that are making them are passionate about the topic.
That's really interesting. I didn't think this segment would become about licensing, but I think it's really fascinating how much licensing plays a role in this stuff and getting your game sold. It explains a lot about why licenses are so valuable. Also, I was just thinking about the role-playing side of things. Margaret White's Productions does a really good job with this too, right? Because they had Serenity. They had it, then they lost it, but it looks like they're getting it back again according to the teaser on their page. Then they had. And then they had so Serenity's there too. Then they had Marvel, right? They do the Marvel RPG, and now they just got
they had,
and they had Leverage too. I believe they have Leverage also, which is a kind of a I guess it's
they
cable.
had Battlestar Galactica as well. I thought,
and they had BSG. I think you're right. Yeah, they did. So they're good at that as well. And I know licensing's always been big for RPGs as well, but it's just sort of interesting to see how well that plays out in our industry. So that's really fascinating. Well, Dan, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us about this stuff, and we'll look forward to chatting with you the rest of the show here momentarily.
Absolutely.
You looking for news, reviews, and interviews? The D6 generation. It's groovy as groovy does defined, baby. The D6 generation. Born to game. Oh, yeah.
Oh, our friends at War Games, Soldiers, and Strategy Magazine. We just had Rick Priestley, the man himself, on this show.
Yes.
And let's say you're like, I like the cut of his jib. I like his attitude. I like his humor. I like the way he talks about stuff. I wish I could read more things by Rick Priestley. Well, if you subscribe to War Games, Soldiers, and Strategy Magazine, you could, because he's got articles in there almost every episode, or every issue, if you will. So what you want to do is head on over to www.wssmagazine.com and check out all those stuff. In fact, you can see the latest issue there. Craig, what's the latest issue showing up on their website right now?
Well, right now I'm looking at actually they do this awesome thing where the next issue is issue 64, which comes out in March, and we're right in the end of February right now. They actually publish an editorial plan ahead of time, so you can actually look at issue 64. I think the issue 65 is the new one that's coming out, and that one is biblical warfare.
Oh, cool.
So I bet you'll find some maybe some elephants.
Maybe elephants. Maybe David and Goliath. With giants and little guys.
Really big giant armies of guys in robes fighting each other with sticks. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay. Well, that'd be awesome. So you check that out. And by the way, if you go to their website and you're like, I want to order a back issue, I do want to subscribe. Hey, make sure you put in the D6G code because D6G listeners get 15% off anything you order, subscription, back issues, whatever you want. So make sure you put that coupon code in there and score the savings over at WSSmagazine.com.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakelin and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out, Zombie Plague, a cutthroat card game of prepping for and trying to survive the apocalypse from Old Glory Publishing on Kickstarter now. This week, I have a guest with me who actually, her company makes one of the most popular games that people say the D6 generation has managed to make them buy, yet they've never actually officially reviewed the games. The game is Pandemic, and I have with me Kalinda Patton, who is the communications manager for Z-Man Games. Welcome, Kalinda.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, it's been 5 years since Pandemic has hit the scene, and it's been an incredibly popular game, and you guys are doing some kind of cool stuff to celebrate that. Want to tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing?
Well, absolutely. For the 5-year anniversary of Pandemic, we decided to totally redesign the game, give it a great new look. It looks a little more movie theme, like some people have said, but we think that it fits well with the game, and well, we're redoing as well the On the Brink expansion, and there's a new expansion called In the Lab that will be out at the end of the summer this year, all with a new redesign, and we have lots of cool stuff that we're going to show people on our new Pandemic the Board Game Facebook page. So if you want to find out all that there is to know about the new edition, that's where to go.
So now you're redoing stuff. You've got new artwork, a sort of an updated look, but In the Lab is an entirely new expansion. Can you tell us much about In the Lab?
I can't tell you much about it because we haven't really talked about all the details yet, and it's still in production. So In the Lab is going to be a board that is next to the Pandemic board. That is a lab, of course, as the name says. There's going to be new characters in the game. And today we're announcing on our Facebook page the winners of the In the Lab contest. That 2 people that joined the page and participated in the contest are going to be incorporated as 2 new roles. They're going to be completely drawn in on the box, in the game, on the cards. So that's a pretty cool contest we have.
Very cool. It's 2 lucky people. Now, what are the new characters? Can you tell us what the new characters that they will be? What are they going to be called?
We have 2 new characters that are the field director and the virologist. I can't tell you what their roles are doing yet because I don't know myself, but I'm guessing they're going to be pretty cool.
Nice. And now these people will have 2, they'll be, like, their likeness is what's going to be on the cards?
Exactly, on the cards and on the box top as well.
Now, are there going to be new characters? I know those are going to be in the lab. Are there any new characters just in the redesigned basic game and in the On the Brink part of the game?
In the basic game, the new Pandemic, there are 2 new roles. So the quarantine specialist, if you place your pawn on a city, all of the cities that are connected to that city and the city you are in will not receive disease cubes during the infection phase. So that's very powerful to have, but you have to learn well what to do with your actions because you don't just want to sit there and not move because that would be a waste of action.
Right.
And the contingency planner, he can take any discarded event card that is in the discard pile and be able to reuse it again. And that card does not count in his hand limit. So that can really help out at some points.
Ooh, two powerful new cards that could really change things up.
Absolutely.
Nice. Now, when can everybody expect to see these different pieces? Do you have release dates or tentative dates as when then everything's going to be coming out?
Well, Pandemic has been out since February 6th. It's sold out in most places because we did not have a lot of copies in our first shipment, but the second shipment is on its way to our distributors as we speak, so it should be back in stock pretty soon.
So any minute, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes. We're trying to get it out as fast as possible now. On the Brink is going to be available in April. I don't have a specific date for it, but April. And the new In the Lab expansion will be at the end of the summer.
End of the summer.
What we have for now.
End of the summer. Does that mean that we might get to see it at like one of those conventions like Gen Con?
Possibly. Hopefully we will have it in time for Gen Con.
Yay, that would be cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Kalinda. And where can people find out more about Z-Man and about what's going on with Pandemic?
As I said, the Z-Man has created a Pandemic Facebook page. So it's Pandemic/the board game on Facebook. So that's where you can get to know all of the information there is to know about the new Pandemic, On the Brink, contests galore. It'll be fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, Craig and Russ. This is Ruben Evans calling all the way from Ireland. Or Ireland, as you crazy Americans say with your extra syllable. It's 2 syllables, Ireland. Just ringing to tell you my New Year's resolution. I hope to make an iPhone app and use the money I make out of that to pay for a holiday. As to whether I'm going for a 2-week vacation to the Bahamas or just an afternoon to the zoo, that'll determine by how much money I make. Anyway, that's me, and keep up the good work, guys. Cool. Cheers.
Greetings from the UK. This is Phil calling from Old Hampshire. It's kind of like New Hampshire, except there's a lot of moss on the walls and everything's in black and white. Hopefully I've got the right voicemail. If not, apologies, random American. If I have, then hello, Nicole, Russ, Craig, D6G listeners. Just listened to the episode about gaming resolutions and thought I'd phone in with some of mine. First one, trying not to suck. Good moral compass there to guide your life by, but specifically, my friends and I just started playing Artemis, the bridge simulator online, and frankly, we're appalling. Yeah, we're awful, but we've only been playing a couple of weeks, so hopefully we'll get better. Second one is to finish painting my Descent set, and that one's going to be a real challenge, because having finished the Descent 2 campaign, pretty much the entire group decided that we hated it, didn't like the way it was balanced, thought it was even worse than the old one, but maybe that was just us. Everyone else seems to like it. But either way, I want to get the rest of the models finished because it bugs me that they're half done. But the big resolution for me this year, I want to go to my first gamings convention, big games convention. I've done a couple of sort of local tournaments, but I was hoping to go to Gen Con. Did a lot of research into travelling and transport and so forth. Spoke to Terrace at Geek Nation Tours a couple of times. It's looking like family commitments are going to get in the way, and it's not going to happen this year, so fingers crossed for next year. But I thought I'd share some of the information that I'd gathered for anyone over here in the UK that's looking at travelling. I was looking at airlines, and specifically I was looking at the airlines and their luggage allowances, figuring, you don't want to be stung on excess baggage to bring all those lovely exclusive games and new releases back from Indianapolis. And I found a small airline, Polish airline based in Poland over here in Europe. And I I'd almost booked tickets with them. Turns out the Poles have a weight limit of £250, which works quite nicely for Gen Con. But as I say, that's not going to happen this year. So hopefully I'll make it to Essen, because, that's just a hop in the car and drive for a few hours across a couple of borders, and we're there, play some games, turn around and come back. And it's a long weekend, not a 2-week vacation. Love the show, just too stingy to buy a shout out and tell you. But please carry on. Enjoying the lost chapters and everything else. Have a good day. Toodle pip. Viva la Pole.
Hey, I'm calling about my New Year's gamer resolution. My main thing is I've got to clear out and sell off a whole bunch of this gaming stuff that I've got. I've got things like some Dust Warfare that I don't need, and Dystopian Wars, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it occurs to me that a lot of it is stuff that I heard about first on your show. So thanks a lot, guys. No, really, keep up the good work. Bye-bye.
Hey, fellas. My name is Brad Thompson, and my New Year's resolution is to dress my 2-year-old up in an Orc Gargant costume that I will have built out of bits and plastic card and use them in an apocalypse game. So wish me luck. We'll see how that goes. Bye.
Hey, D6G, this is Andy, and I'm calling to leave you my 2013 gaming resolution. And that is I will absolutely not buy any more expansion packs for the Star Wars X-Wing game. I cannot buy any more. I did pre-order the TIE Interceptors because my squadron needs those TIE Interceptors to go in. And, obviously to counter their kind of fast influence in the game, the A-Wings, I had to buy a couple of those. Those are going to come. But other than that, that's it. I'm not buying any more expansion packs. I can't afford it. My wife's going to kill me after, of course, I get the Millennium Falcon and Slave One, because those are just, way too cool. But that's it. And I'm sure that in 2013 they're not going to release any more expansion packs for the game. That's it. They're the only ships they're going to be. Unless, of course, there's Imperial Star Destroyer, which I'll absolutely have to get in 2013. But the Imperial Star Destroyer, and maybe a Rebel Cruiser. A Rebel Cruiser, Imperial Star Destroyer, that's it. And maybe if they release the TIE Bombers, because those are pretty cool as well, and those might be kind of a nice thing to have. Of course, if they do that, then the TIE Bombers have to get the rest of the fleet that was available at Yavin around I could see a different problem here in 2013. The Star Wars X-Wing game. But that's it. Heck.
Hello, this is Brian Aurelio. I am a long-time listener, but first-time caller. Thanks for your great work on the show. As part of trying to get more listener feedback and involvement on the show, here is my gaming resolution for 2013. I will restart and complete the project to paint all the Battles of Westeros miniatures and get the games to the table at least twice this year once everything is fully painted. Right? I do enjoy the show, and thanks for all your work that you put into it.
My name is Mark Dewakati, and my resolution is to get back into working on my scenarios for a Combat Commander expansion and getting that finished this year so it can come out next year. And thank you.
Hey guys, it's Joe out of the Pacific Northwest, and a long-time listener. You're my gaming group because I don't get to play games. I work so much that I really don't have anything but a lot of rule books and some models. So this year I'm going to cull my collection and actually pick one or two games I really like and paint and play them. And I am going to keep listening to you guys, and I'm also going to tell Russ that hockey doesn't continue to play. Basketball, you score, you scored against, you throw the ball in, you keep playing. Hockey, you do reset. You have a face-off at center. Shame on you for using that metaphor in the last episode. Love you guys. Bye.
This is the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com.
Welcome back. And now, one of the new hotnesses, especially if you like civilization building games, and who doesn't, is Clash of Cultures. Very exciting game for me. I got totally. This is not a review copy. I bought this as sort of an impulse buy because it had an elephant on the cover, giant war elephant, which you can't go wrong with. And then I also saw the Z-Man announcement, and I'm a sucker for civ building games, so I kind of bought in and just went at it. So turned out it's pretty good. So let's talk about how it works. It was published this year, 2000. But I put 12 in here. It's 2013, or was it 2000? Did it come out at the end of last year, Dan?
Right at the end of last year,
so
I think.
I think it's technically a 2012 title, but you probably didn't see it to 2013. I didn't. Designed by Christian. How do you pronounce that last name, Dan? What do you think?
Marcuson.
Very good. And you might know him from Merchants and Marauders, which is a game we did review. We in fact did review on this show. We both, Craig and I, really enjoyed.
And I bought it.
Yes, we both own it.
And it's one of the many things I bought and then didn't play because we have to just go on and play the next thing.
Well, actually, I just played it about a month ago. It's good. It's a really good game. I still like it a lot. Now, this game, Clash of Cultures, is 2 to 4 players. And, of course, it's a civilization building 4X game, which stands for, who can name all the X's?
Explore, exterminate, expand.
And exploit. Yes, very good. Yeah. Nicely done. And the playtime, this is one of the rare games where the playtime, I think, is actually overestimated. They say it's 180 to 240 minutes, which I think is about right, but in most of the games I played have been less than that, even with learning. You can have a little analysis paralysis, but normally that doesn't happen too often. The MSRP of this game is $79.99, which is a little pricey. We'll talk about what's in the box here. So $80 for this baby. And the background. Dan, what is the big, elevator pitch of the box cover here?
In Clash of Cultures, you will transform a meager settlement into a mighty empire whose culture will be your greatest achievement. To accomplish this, you will have to invent new technologies, build grand cities, and spread the influence of your culture across your enemy's borders. You will need to explore the lands and seas with your settlers and ships, and conquer foreign cities and barbarian settlements. With 12 advanced categories, including various government types, a modular game board, superb city pieces, and more, Clash of Cultures offers a myriad of experiences to accomplish your ultimate goal. Be the one ruling culture, the one that will be remembered and admired for thousands of years. Will you be the leader of this great culture?
Will you, Craig?
No, I will not.
All right.
I think we established that I will not.
So that was the pitch. So basically it is, build your civilization up and be the most famous one, whatever that means. We'll get to that exactly what that means in a minute. So, Craig, what does it sound like when the box cover with a war elephant on it is opened?
It goes...
Well, that's pretty good. And sadly, that is the last elephant you will ever see or hear because there are actually no elephants in this game whatsoever except for the cover. Very disappointing.
What?
I know.
Not even a nod to the elephants.
Not even a reference.
Are you serious?
Seriously.
Formula E has more elephants than this?
It does.
4 more, I believe. Exactly.
Oh, my God.
In fact,
that's the whole point of this. I'm done. I'll see you later.
I have a Kickstarter idea for you, Dan, by the way. I was looking for some elephant meeples or bits to replace this game's warriors with elephants, and there aren't any online. So I would like an elephant meeple Kickstarter.
No. We have. Didn't you see the Formula E Kickstarter? You can get a batch. You can just buy elephant meeples.
Okay. How many do you get?
It's like 20 or something.
Oh, but I need like 80. Different colors. Well, we'll talk offline.
You just let me know in like 6 months when Formula E comes out.
With how does little spears? Let me know. Look at that. Okay. So
we have to do spears too? Holy cow.
Well, it's got to be war elephants. Come on. All right. So anyway, there are no elephants. But what there is in the box, first of all, you get... Whoa, what is that noise, Craig? Is that an elephant?
That was the beginning of the Formula E video.
Oh, nice. That is, is strangely audio appropriate. Okay, so there are 20 region tiles. Now, this game's tiles are a little different than most of the games. They're actually 4 hexes sort of together with sort of almost ellipse shapes. You got one above and below and one to the left and right. So you got sort of this like oblong shape of ellipses. And on one side of the tile is each tile hex is a different terrain type. So you might have great mountain artwork, and then some trees, a plain, and maybe a desert. And in the back, they're all just look like clouds. So they basically put them face down and then flip them over as you explore and see what's in the land. So it's going to be hidden.
Fog of war.
Yeah, thank you. Also, you're going to get 8 6-sided dice. You're going to get 4 player mats. You're also going to get 4 player aids, which are basically little quick reference cards that go next to the mats. You're also going to get a nice little turn track card, which is kind of really important. We'll talk about that, how that works. You're also going to get 119 cards, lots of cards in the game. Not a lot of artwork on the cards. Only the Wonder cards have nice art. The rest are just text heavy, but they still work. Also get 7 Wonder pieces. Now these are the lamest bits in the box, I think. They are little cardboard standees. So the Wonders are little stand-ups, and then there's little, the cardboard little feet that you stick in there, and they stand up like that. Kind of old school. That was kind of lame. Otherwise, everything else looks pretty sharp. You get 192 wooden cubes, lots of wooden cubes in the 4-player colors. You're also going to get 120 tokens, lots of tokens, and then you get 250 plastic miniatures. Now, these are nice miniatures, but they are kind of old school. When I say that, Craig, what'd you think of the miniatures? Do they feel like older school board game miniatures?
They feel very much like the old school Milton Bradley
Master Series, right?
Yeah, Game Master Series is exactly what I was thinking.
Because they're kind of bendy, and there's a little bit of flashing on them, so they look a little, they got that older feel. So it's not that newer, almost miniature game quality. Kind of want to paint them plastics you're seeing from Fantasy Flight and that kind of stuff. They still look nice. In fact, it looks great on the table. It's just be aware they're that kind. You're gonna get in this plastic. You're gonna get settlers, little dudes in robes that are basically going to found your cities for you. You're going to get boats. The boats are pretty cool. They have like 2 little holes in them where you stick sails. They look like little Viking boats with 2 sails in them. You're going to get lots of warriors, which are basically dudes with little spears and shields. You're going to get now. This is the part where the game really component shines. You're going to get a bunch of villages, which are sort of these round center circles, and then you get a bunch of city bits. And there's 4 different kinds. There's these. There's academies and temples and fortresses. And ports, and they all are shaped in such a way that they sort of attach to the center circle and then form a larger city around the center. So when you've got all the bits in a city, it turns from this little tiny village to a giant mecca with 4 different functioning areas. And it really looks pretty slick, and you get the feeling of your cities growing and looking cooler and cooler.
Yeah.
You also get a rule book, and the rule book is full color. And I did like this little trick. They put the table of contents on the front cover, so when the rule book is closed, you can actually see where everything is. That, however, is the extent of the rulebook being high quality because, unfortunately, there is no index. Fail. There is no quick reference sheet in the back of the book. They felt instead that there should be an ad for merchants and marauders in the back, which that's a serious waste of really, really good reference space. Make that on the inside cover, and on the back of the book, make a nice reference. Fortunately, the player aid is pretty good, but there are some rules sprinkled in. You're going to look things up a lot the first time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Craig, what'd you think for $80? What do you think of the components and how the game looks on the table and everything?
Well, for $80, I would like to have seen the map pieces a little thicker. Mm-hmm. They're really cool, but I'd like to see them a little thicker. I love the player tracking boards with little holes in them. They're very, very thick linen stock with little holes to plug in the little cubes and everything. I thought the player aid mats again were a little on the flimsy side, and they're really size wise they were good. I would have just liked to see that the same quality as the thing that it plugs into and sits next to, and that would be great. The models I felt were a very interesting mix of disappointing and ridiculously cool. All the city bits, as you say, are really cool. The way you're building these cities and they end up looking like really cool little metropoli. Yeah, you like how I did that?
I do.
Is very cool. The spearmen and the settlers, however, are really there's a lot of flashing around a lot of them. Their spears are all just bent and ugly, and it's not like, oh, throw them in boiling water and they'll get fixed. It's literally like they're that old school cheap army man quality plastic that was. I don't think I've seen game pieces of that like made out of this particular material in a long time. So that was a little disappointing to me.
I think you kind of had to do that for the quantity of miniatures in there, though. There's 250 miniatures.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's going to say it's a lot of plastic. So it's a lot of wooden cubes too. So usually you pay a lot in games that even just have wood. So there's a lot of stuff in here. So you're getting quantity over quality maybe a little bit. And you're right. I totally agree with you, Craig. On that level of quality, it's not up to the par of some of the stuff we've seen before, but it's also a lot of bits in the box.
True.
And I think it all works together pretty well. It looks nice on the table. It's funny, too, because I'm going to compare this game a lot to Sid Meier's Civilization by Fantasy Flight Games because it's basically the same theme, and it sort of fills the same sort of niche. And I think what's interesting about this is it almost looks better on the table than that other game, even though that other game's got it's got the fancy dials, it's got the plastic's higher quality, but the plastic are just little flags, and because the tiles are thicker, but they're squares, and it's a very grid thing, it actually looks more abstracted visually on the board than this does for some reason to me.
I think this game looks far more interesting on the table than Civilization.
So it's almost like the whole's greater than the sum of its parts. Each piece, you're exactly right on, Craig. The quality's not as high as you might expect, but all together, it actually looks really sharp on the table, I think.
Absolutely right.
All right, great. So let's talk about setup, as we do. So what you're going to do, basically, if you look in the beginning of the book, there's all different kinds of ways to lay the configuration of the tiles out, depending on your player count. It plays from 2 to 4 players. I played 2 players several times. Folks ask me sometimes, how do these things play? This plays great at 2 players. It's a nice 2-player game. So if you mostly play 2 players, don't be afraid of it that way. Different map layouts for 2, 3, or 4. Keeps the game balanced. So you're going to lay the board out that way, and basically all the tiles are going to be face down except for the home tiles, which go in the appropriate corners. Every player gets a colored mat and the colored play aid. Now, the mats are sort of interesting. The bottom half of the mat, as Craig mentioned, is full of sort of square holes, and that's your tech tree. So as you get technology in this game, what you're going to take your little wooden cubes, and you're going to put them into little square spots that are going to be next to text that are going to describe, I've just bought the irrigation advance, and what does that let me do? And now I'm going to buy, the port technology. What does that let me do? You're going to put the little cubes in there to track your tech trees, all tracked that way. And I like the fact that it's set into thick board, so it actually makes it hard to just accidentally knock your cubes over and lose what your technologies were. Also, on the top of these mats, there's this little track, little buckets from 0 to 8. And what's going to happen is you're going to put tokens on there that represent different resources. There's going to be a token for wood, a token for ore, etc. And as you gain more resources, instead of having to go to a bucket someplace and pull out 3 more ore tokens, you're just going to slide your ore token up the track or down the track as you gain or spend ore. So it's kind of like another method for the dial. Instead of the fancy dial, you've just got a little slider here that goes up and down on a little track. So that's your player map. That's a really important piece for you. Then everybody's going to get the colored bits, and I keep all mine in separate bags, and the bags do come with the game. So you throw the guy, here's all the red bits, here's all the green bits. Everybody's going to get the resource counter. So everybody's going to get one of each resource counter. So that, again, there's ore, wood, and all the other ones. You put them on 0, except for food, which is like a little bit of wheat. That goes on 2. So everybody starts with 2 food in the game. Also, you get this giant pointy happiness indicator and a giant pointy culture indicator. The happiness indicator is a giant smiley face with a big arrow on it, and the culture one's sort of this theater mask with a big arrow on it. And those will start at the 0 track also, and those are going to go up as you advance your civilization and show your overall cultural quality and your overall happiness of your people. And then everybody's also going to put 1 cube. They're starting 2 technologies. Everybody starts with farming, and everyone starts with mining, so you put those cubes in there as well. And each player is going to put one of their settlements, a little tiny small round city bit, on their starting tile, and they're also going to put one of their settlers, one of the guys that go make a new city, on the starting tile as well. Interesting note, you don't start with any military in this game, and you can build military, but you cannot move your military until you research tactics. So getting military up and running actually takes a little bit of work. Also, you're going to deal each player 1 action card and 1 objective card. More about those later. And you're going to put the turn token on the turn track. So there's this cool little turn track card, and it keeps track of the rounds. The game is divided into 7 rounds by the default system, and each round is divided into 3 turns. So what you're going to do is you're going to play 3 turns. Each turn is going to be all players going, and then you move the turn counter again, all players go again. After you do that 3 times, then the round advances, and when the round changes, then there's going to be a little between round thing called the status phase, where you do some special things there, and you go back and rinse and repeat all the way through. So you need that nice turn track to keep track of all that. And then finally, the last thing you're going to do is roll for the first player. Everybody's going to roll a d6. Whoever player 1, you're going to start. So setup's pretty straightforward. Lay out the map, give everybody their colored tokens, put in your starting technologies. Everybody gets a card each from each of the decks, and boom, you're pretty much ready to go. Make sense?
Yep.
Craig, was set up pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. Did it feel like a long setup game, Craig, or pretty much pretty quick?
No, it felt like, I mean, it's one of those games where everybody gets their own bag. If you have Russ doing the box control for you ahead of time, everybody gets their own bag. You just separate your bits out. You've got all the different tokens you need right there, and you're set to go pretty much as somebody, a.k.a. Russ, sets up the board.
Right. And the other thing, of course, you do have that gamer need to, you dump your plastic bits out, you must sort them. So you put all the little fortresses together and all the, I do that to make your little army look cool on the side of the table. I don't know if anybody else does that. So if you do that, it'll take another 5 minutes to sort your stuff out. Anyway, your mileage may vary on that. Now, as I like to say when I'm teaching games, it's always good to let everybody know up front what you're trying to actually do to win. And this game is all about victory
You always
points.
say that?
Do I? I think I do. So,
I don't think you always say that.
So it's a new thing. So basically,
an intriguing concept.
So basically, in some civilization games, there are multiple paths to victory, right? And you can win by military, you can win by. Well, this game's sort of the same way. The deal is it's all about victory points. Okay, so it's very simple. He with the most victory points wins. But the way you can acquire victory points in this game are myriad. How'd you like that, Dan? There's a myriad of ways to get victory points in here. So, and what's nice about this is it's right on the bottom of that little quick reference sheet that goes next to your player mat. So it's right there in front of you. First and most importantly, you're going to get 1 victory point for every plastic city bit of your color on the table. Now, the primary way you're going to do this is build your own cities and add to your cities and grow your cities in size. So if you get a city, they add a fortress to it, that's 2 little plastic bits, that's worth 2 victory points, etc. As you conquer cities, they'll turn to your color also, so you can do it with military. And also, as you do cultural influence, you can actually turn pieces of other players' cities your color. As I was saying, I was infecting them with Gangnam-style YouTube videos, and they were learning my culture of Korean dance styles on horseback. And so they would then turn blue or whatever was going on there. So one of the things you do, the big way is get victory points, 1 point for every plastic bit of yours in the end of the table. That is a city, not your soldiers, just your cities. Also, you get a half a victory point per advance, a.k.a. per tech cube on your board. So you count all those up, divide by 2, round down. That is how much you got for victory points there. So technology is a way to get victory points, but it's not as effective as building cities. And the final way you get victory points, actually there's 2 other ways. There's objective cards that are dealt out. So each player starts with one, and you get more throughout the game. These give you side objectives that are worth 2 points each, and it can add up pretty quickly. So these are sort of interesting. And the other thing you can do is you get 5 victory points per wonder you build also. So wonders are super expensive to build, and they're worth victory points also. So that's the goal of the game, basically, get those victory points. And as I mentioned before, the game is divided into 7 rounds, 3 turns around, and each turn, each player is going to do all of the following. They're going to get 3 actions, okay? And your action types are the following. I'm going to go down real quick first. You can advance, which basically means research new technology. You can found a city, which basically means I can take a settler, swap them out, and put a city bit there, a little village. You can activate a city. If you want to activate a city, what you want to do is you're going to either build units there, you're going to collect resources, or you're going to increase the city size. More about that in a bit. Or you can move units. And when you're moving stuff, basically you're going to move to 3 groups of guys. You can either move 1 guy 3 times, or you can move 3 different guys 1, or you can move a group of guys that started together, 3 spaces or something like that. So you can pick group what you want. And that could be a ship, a settler, or a soldier, or any combination you want to do there. Then finally, you can do civic improvement or cultural influence. More about that in a bit. So basically, you're going to pick any of these 3 things. You can do 3 of the same thing. You can mix them up. You can move some guys. You can do an activation. You can activate a city. However you want to do it, 3 things. Then your turn is over. The next person goes. So if Craig's player 1, he does 3 actions. Then it goes to me. I do 3 actions. Then Dan would do 3 actions. And then Rafe would do 3 actions. Then it's back to Craig again. We move the turn counter down 1. Do it all again. Once 3 of those happens, then the status phase happens. And then we go on to do it again. That's pretty much the whole game. So let me get into some of the nitty-gritty. Does that all make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So let's get the nitty-gritty of some of these things. Well, first of all, there's the advance. Now, advance is a big deal. That's how you're going to research new technologies. Now, technology costs you 2 food. And what's nice about this is all the things you got to buy in the game, whether it's a tech advance or building a soldier or whatever, or upgrading your city, that little reference card on the side next to your player mat has all the costs on there for you. And a tech advance is going to cost you 2 food. They have a nice little blurb in the rule book. Why food? Well, because historically, civilizations only advance technology-wise when they have a surplus of food. So you have to spend food to get your tech advance. So 2 food, you just move down your little food counter 2 on your little chart there, and you're going to take one of your cubes and put it into one of the technologies you want. Now, the technology area of your player mat is divided into sections. So there's one about, seafaring, and there's one about military, and there's one about science, and so they're divided up. The only rule in technology is you can't buy anything in a given category until you buy the very first one. And once you buy the very first lot in that category, now you can buy any other one in that category you'd like, unless it's got a specifically listed prerequisite. So basically, you just got to buy the tech you want. The only other rule is there's another set of technologies down there that are actually called governments, and there's little yellow arrows moving down from a technology above them to those governments. And in order to research those, you have the technology the yellow arrow is coming from. So there's a couple prerequisites, but it's very clearly marked on the board. Craig, do you have any problem figuring out what you could buy and what you couldn't buy?
No, actually, it was very, very clear to me. The problem I was having was that it's there's so many options to choose from, but it's very clear what you can get and when you can get it. And I didn't feel like I was overly limited so much as I just had too many options in my head.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this game is the overall rules, as you're going to hear, aren't very complicated. Where all the cool sort of economic engines and other interesting things come from are all from the technology advances. And you really have to, it's going to take you several playthroughs to kind of figure out different options. And I would recommend to you, is the first time you play the game, instead of trying to sort of read the entire board and analyzing all your choices, pick something that feels fluffy to you. Like if you have a lot of water near you, just, I'm going to build a seafaring nation and focus on seafaring. Or if you've got a lot of land near you and away from the enemy, maybe you're going to build up culture. Or if you're like Craig and barbarians near you early on, maybe I'm going to go military, right? Just pick a theme and stick with it.
I'm going to focus on city happiness.
There you go. That's another way you can do it. So you pick your tech. One other little note, some of the tech cube slots have little blue borders around them or yellow borders. If they have a border around them, when you buy that technology, you're also going to get a bonus either in happiness or culture. If it's yellow, it's a mood increase, or happiness. If it's blue, it's a culture increase. If you get one of these, two things happen. Let's say it's mood. You're going to get a mood token, and you're going to take that and put it in your little bank there. There's a little slot on your player aid, and that's a spot to keep track of those mood tokens. You're going to spend them later. Also, that little mood indicator on the track looks like a big arrow. That's going to move up one. And if it was a culture advance, same thing. You're going to get a culture token, which you can spend later, and you're also going to move the culture indicator on your meter up one. So these things move up permanently. So like, let's say you create sanitation. You research sanitation. Your citizens are cleaner. Therefore, they're happier. Hey, there's less poop in the street, right? So they're a little happier. When they get happier, it's a permanent happiness increase, as well as an immediate happiness token you can spend for doing something else. Into that in a bit. So that's the primary way you can do that. Now, when those things advance, they are going to cross certain parts of your track have the big word event on them. When they cross those, they're going to trigger an event. And that event's going to trigger when either of those markers cross it, either the happiness marker or the mood marker or the culture marker crosses it. So each event on your track is going to get triggered twice for your civilization. Events are generally, right, Craig, generally bad. Right?
Generally, they are bad. They range from sort of bad to really, really, really crappy bad.
And they generally target primarily the player who drew the event, but not always. Sometimes they affect all players at the table. So there's some interesting events, too. One of them could be like an earthquake, and parts of your cities are destroyed. What's kind of interesting about this is when you destroy your city, you put the bits destroyed on the event card, and those bits that are destroyed actually score victory points at the end of the game. And then they have this little side in the rulebook. It's like, why score victory points for a city you had to destroy? Well, it's because it's for game balance, but also it says, well, if there was a major disaster, your city might be remembered throughout history for its culture. Think about Pompeii, right? Who would know about Pompeii if it wasn't destroyed by a volcano? Nobody. So it's kind of an interesting little side thing there. So that's advances, technology advances. Really simple to do, but a lot of depth. They're going to be studying that a lot, so I spend a lot of time on it. The other thing you can do is found a city as an action. Very simple. Wherever your settler happens to currently be, you take the settler off. He's put back in your pile of bits you can use later, and you put a little village on there. Proof you've got a new city. Okay? You can basically put a city anywhere that's not water, and you can put cities adjacent to each other. It's just that it's less effective than having them spread out because you can't. It's harder to share land and stuff. Now, also, you can activate your city. Now, your city... First of all, when you're activating a city, the size of your city is very important. And the size of the city is defined as the number of plastic bits that are currently in it. So if it's just got the little village in the middle, it was just found that it's size 1. But as soon as you build another bit on it, like, for example, you add a fortress, it becomes size 2. As you count up all the plastic bits, that's its size. Okay? Now, mood can affect the city as well and make it even feel bigger, but I'll get to mood in a little bit. So the 3 actions you can do for a city, you can either build units there. So you can basically build some warriors or ships or settlers there, and for one action you can build as many units as you can afford, and their costs are all listed in resources on your sheet. So like a settler costs 2 food, and a warrior costs a food and an ore, and a boat costs 2 wood. So you can pay those, but if you can afford them, you can build as many of them as your city size is. So if your city size is 1, you can only build 1 unit, but if your city size is 3, for example, you could build 3 different guys if you can afford it in resources. So instead of building units, you can also collect resources with that city. And all that basically means is you look down at the ground, and your city, based on its size again, can harvest land from 1 hex, either it's in or adjacent to it, per one's size. So if it's size 1, it can look at 1 tile and say, I'm going to harvest from there. And different terrain types in the game generate different resources. So, for example, an open field generates food. A forest generates wood. A mountain generates ore. And water, if you have a port, generates all kinds of crazy stuff. And so you can basically, I'm going to harvest wood from this one. If I'm going to have a size 2 city, I can harvest from the wood. I could also harvest from the land and get food and wood in the same activation. You cannot, one little rule though, is you can't harvest from the same hex in the same action twice. So if a city is size 2, it can't go food from the same tile. It has 2 different food tiles to be able to do 2 food, right? And your meters go up. You just move your little food, you just move the resource meters up on your meter based on a track there, based on how much you harvested.
Do you find you often cap those out or not really?
You mean cap out how much you can harvest?
Yeah, like do your meters, do you ever run them all the way up and then you have to figure out how to track more, or is it just an artificial cap?
I find it, you end up, you mean to the end of the 7-spot meter?
Yeah.
No, very rarely. We did have our little indicators go all the way to the top that track your total overall mood, but your actual food, you usually end up spending it the same turn you generate it. You don't really end up holding it over turn to turn very much.
Yeah, there are special intermediate goal cards that you can get, and one of them is you need to collect 5 of different resources. And I had that twice, and it took me all round to do that each time. And then you lose a bunch of it when you trade it in for victory points. Yeah, so it's really hard to generate that much, or at least it was in the game that we played. And it goes away very quickly as you're building stuff, because you also have to pay for your cultural advancements and everything else, the tech trees and everything. So you're literally you're spending it as quickly as you're making.
You almost spend it all in the same turn you create it, because you basically a lot of times what'll happen is you'll harvest first, but you might save it up for something big like a
wonder
or something, right? So that's the other second action with the city. The third action with the city is to increase the city size. So this is where you're going to say, okay, I'm going to add that fortress to the city, or I'm going to add more plastic to your city. A city can only have one of each type of attachment, so you can't build a second fortress in a city. And you have to research the appropriate tech. So the major techs have the name of the city advancement next to them that they're required to be able to use. So for example, you have to research tactics to be able to build a fortress. You have to research religion to be able to build a temple. Right? So you can add that on there. Now, one big rule that is easy to forget or miss: no city can be bigger in size than the total cities you own. So if you only have one city, you cannot build an attachment on the city, make it size 2 until you have at least 2 cities. And if you have 2 cities, no city can be bigger than size 2. So the game does force you to expand out and increase your cities you own before you can build up and make a giant city.
Now, here's a question that we ran into last night, Russ, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. I had 3 cities, and 2 of them had 3 pieces each, and then I lost a city. So do you lose the pieces for those other 2 remaining cities?
You do not. So if you had 3 cities at one point and you go down to 2, you do not lose the bits.
But just the condition for building the new bits.
You can't add any more now until you get another city, right? So you're kind of stuck at that size. Now, one thing, if you're keeping track closely at home here, you'll realize that you get 3 actions a turn, and one of the actions is activate a city. So I could theoretically and I can do any action more than once. So I could, for example, activate the same city twice. Let's say I wanted to harvest from this city, so I could have it harvest and get some resources. Then I'm going to activate the same city again to build soldiers. I can do that, but if you double activate a city in the same turn, you'll overwork your citizens and make them angry, and the happiness level of the city goes down. The city has 3 different mood states. It could be normal, no tokens next to it. It can be happy, a little smiley face token next to it, or it can be angry with a little frowny face token. If the city is happy, it is worth 1 size larger than it is for when you harvest or try to do cultural influence. Or basically when you harvest or you build units. So 1 size bigger. So that's really good, because when you're harvesting, it'll actually give you an extra hex you can harvest from higher than your size, which is huge. So if getting a happy city is great, but if you overactivate it, it goes to, you lose your smiley face and go to regular. And if you activate it again, it would become angry. An angry city has 2 problems. 1, it always counts as size 1, which stinks. And B, it cannot be made larger until it is made at least not angry anymore. So overactivating a city is very bad and get your citizens upset. Also note, if a city is invaded by the enemy and taken over, it becomes angry. Which is an interesting mechanic, because it's a really cool thing where if Craig and I kept fighting back and forth and capturing a city back and capturing a city back from each other, it would be constantly be angry, because this would be a constant war, and it would be very unproductive. So it's kind of cool. You have to capture a city and then give it some time of peace and put some goodwill into it to get it to be happy and productive again, which is a neat mechanic. All done very simply with tokens. So that's activating a city. It's a lot on there too, but it's your main thing you'll probably be doing. Now, the other thing is moving units. It's pretty simple. You can grab 3 different units, or 1 group of 3, or 1 group of units, whatever you want to do, and move them either basically move them once or move them up to 3 times because you move all the movements on that one unit. So you can move one guy 3 or one guy 2 and one guy 1 or however you want to do it. Ships have sort of interesting movement. Ships, for one movement, can move all the way through a contiguous sea space from one to another, so things move all the way around. And then there's this really cool technology you can research later in the game called navigation, which lets them actually sail off the edge of the map and come in on the next available water space. They can sort of hop around the edge of the board and sort of circumnavigate the globe, which can really interesting, make some interesting things happen later in the game. When you move your land units, you can walk them basically into a ship. Ships can carry 2 guys. And then as a second move, you can move the ship itself if you wanted to. There are some things that affect movement, though. For example, mountains. If you enter mountains, you can't move that unit again in the same turn. Now, keep this in mind. So think about this for a minute. I have 3 actions. I could spend more than 1 action on moving. So I could spend an action, move 3 units, 1 space, then spend another action to move again and move those same 3 units, 1 more space each, or move 1 guy 3 and then 1 guy 3 more. But if I do that, there's still some rules. If I hit mountains, I can't move them again this whole turn. Okay, so a turn is my 3 actions, so I couldn't move you in action, move these guys again. If they get involved in a battle, I can't move them again this turn. So if I fight, the guys that fought are going to be locked down the rest of the turn. Also, if I enter a forest, I can move again, but I can't move again if I'm going to move into a battle. So basically, you can't see through the forest and attack somebody. You got to kind of spend a turn scouting out the enemy. Also, one little note about movement: the army stacking limit is 4, so 4 guys per hex. And the last trick to moving is exploring. So if you end a guy on a tile that hasn't been turned over yet, you're going to flip it over. And there's some neat rules about orientation on this thing. You have to orient it such that water is on the edge of the board if possible and touching other water. And your moving guy can't be standing in water. And you have to align mountains together too. So it sounds complicated, but it's really very simple. You just move the tile so it's going to make some sense. Other thing to watch for is when you flip a tile over, there could be a little barbarian icon on it. And Craig, how does that work if you see barbarians?
They're awful. If you get a little barbarian token on the map tile that you flipped over, basically a village, a little brown village with 1 little brown spearman shows up, and you as the revealing player get to choose which place it goes in. It has to go on the plains, right? Or can it go anywhere?
It has to go on the plains first if they're available, yep.
It has to go on plains if they're available, and I didn't see any tile sets that didn't have at least 1 plane.
Right.
There may be some, but I didn't see any. And and so then you've got these little freaking barbarians just squatting next to your line of advance, waiting to go ballistic on you.
Yeah, this might be the best implementation of the barbarians I've seen in these games, because they're sometimes very abstracted. In this game, they've actually got their own little bits, and they got their own little cities, and you can take them over yourself later and capture the cities, but they will actually build up slowly based on event cards and actually come out and attack you and stuff, just like they do in the computer game Civilization. So they're actually very dynamic and kind of scary looking as they grow more powerful. So much like the Civilization computer game, if you don't stomp them out when they're small, over time they will grow and grow and grow and become a small problem.
They're not just passive like in Small World where they just sit there.
No, they're not passive. And they're not passive like they are in Sid Meier's either. Yeah, they just sit there also in the board game. All right, so the last couple of actions you can do, or almost some of the actions, is civic improvement. So civic improvement is basically, and this is interesting, it's not a city action, okay? This is just a general action, which means it doesn't count as activating your city more than once. A civic improvement is used to increase the happiness of your city. So you nominate one of your cities and say, I'm going to do a civic improvement, and you're going to spend 1 mood token. Remember, you get those mood tokens whenever you do certain technology advances. You're going to spend 1 mood token per the size of the city, and you'll increase its happiness status by 1. So if it was neutral, you can put a smiley face on it at the cost of 1 mood token. If it's a size 2 city, 2 bits of plastic is going to cost you 2. If it was unhappy, you can make it neutral, and if it was neutral, you can make it happy. And actually, during the civic improvement action, you can do as many civic improvements as you can afford. So if you've got enough mood tokens, you can make all your cities happy if you've got enough of them. But it gets expensive. So another tactical tip in this game is when your city size 1, make it happy when it's a 1 because it's cheaper. And then as you grow it, keep it happy, and you'll be fine. Don't get it angry by getting invaded or something or overactivating it. That's a really simple step. And the last step, and this is really unique to this game, and I really like how this works, it's called cultural influence. Craig, do you remember how cultural influence works?
I do. The cultural influence is almost like an attack, but you're attacking with the Gangnam style dance.
You are, yes, culture.
And basically what you're doing is each city has a range for their cultural influence that is equal to the number of plastic bits or the size of the city. Mm-hmm. So if it has 3 little plastic bits together, it can try to influence an enemy or barbarian city if you have the right card, but generally not a barbarian city. But another player's city within that number of hexes away. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you roll a D6, and in this game, you almost always want to roll a 5 or better. So you're going to roll 1d6. If you get a 5 or better, you actually get to choose one of the plastic bits in your enemy's city and change it to your color.
Right.
So it can't be the centerpiece either. So it's got to be. It has to be a city that's expanded a little bit. And the only effect that has is that it's going to give you victory points. It doesn't allow you to use that section. They still use that section as if it was their color. But what it does is it adds to your victory point total at the end of the game, because now you have another piece out there that's your color.
Right. And when you make that die roll, if you, let's say you roll a 3 and you want a 5, you can spend the culture tokens you've been getting for certain technology advances to add +1 to your die roll, right? So if I roll a 3, I could spend 2 culture tokens to pop it up to 5 to get the thing. And this is a really cool mechanic, because basically your color starts to spread into enemy cities, but you're not really fighting them. And now it's you also, as the other player, you can do your own cultural influence on your own city to get your pieces back to your color.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a passive way to get more. So it's really interesting, because this game you can, the most plastic bits you control is really what it's all about, city bits. You can do it by conquest, because when you capture a city, all the pieces in there become your color. But also you can just do it with influence, and suddenly, if you're a really cultural powerhouse, all of a sudden some of Craig's bits are turning blue, and some of Dan's bits are turning blue, and everybody's like, this stupid Gangnam Style dance is persuasive. I can't get rid of it. So that's, I would like that mechanic as well. So that is all the actions. Dan, does that make sense? That's really all you do each round or each turn.
Yeah, I can see what Craig's talking about, where there's lots of options, but none of them seem overwhelming. So I think it's just a matter of starting to do them, and that gets you a feel for them. But yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah. So then what happens? So we've done one of those turns. I've done 3 actions. Dan's done 3 actions. Rafe does 3. Craig's done 3. It's back to me. I do 3. We do that all 3 times, keeping track of a little turn counter, and then it gets to the bottom of the column of the turn counter, and I have to put it to the next column. That reminds us, it's time for the status phase. Now, the status phase consists of a few quick things. First is complete objectives. Now, remember all those objective cards we dealt out at the beginning? Everybody starts with 1. So you're going to look at your objective cards. Now, you want to look at these kind of early. But these are neat, because these are going to give you specific sub-objectives you're going to try to do. And at this part, most of them say, status phase, if you've got more of your color pieces in enemy cities than anyone else does, you get, it's cultural influence, you get +2 victory points. And so during the status phase, if that condition is met, you get to score those 2 points. You put the card face up next to your player thing, and those are yours to keep forever. Now, you've just got 2 permanent victory points, can't be taken away from you. Now, the bottom half of these objective cards, some of them also have other status objectives, and some of them can be played in real time, like conquer an enemy city with at least 1 fortress, get 2 victory points. So what's going to happen is these objective cards are going to kind of tilt you towards certain play styles and give you certain advantages or scoring bonuses if you play a certain way. Some of them are like own all the technical advances in one particular area, or own more tech advances than anyone else, or things like that. Craig, can you think of some other examples of objectives you had?
Of objectives that I had one that was have a total of 12 armies / ships at the end of any round.
Right.
And that was impossible at the level of the game we were. I mean, maybe not impossible, but I wasn't able to do it. There was one that I had that I almost managed to do, which was you needed to have 4 cities that were not adjacent to each other or any other city. And so that gets kind of hard once people start to spread out and cities start popping up all over the place. I thought I could do it, and then another barbarian city popped up.
Those barbarians. We had a lot of barbarians this time.
Damn barbarians. There are barbarians everywhere.
So basically, everybody's going to look at their objective cards, and we're going to go around the table and show off our objective cards and score them if we got them this right now. Then everyone gets a free advance. Woohoo! So you don't have to pay any food for it. Everybody's going to get a free cube to put in one of the technologies of their choice, following all the normal tech rules, basically, all that stuff. Now, you got to do it in player order, because when you get advances, of course, it's going to move up sometimes. Your culture or your mood markers, when those move up, they might hit an event and cause an event to fire off. And the sequence events fire is kind of important, so you want to do this in order.
Yeah.
The next thing that's going to happen is everybody's going to draw a card. So everybody's going to get one more action card, one more objective card, and there's no hand limits. So you get another action, another objective card. That's important. The objective, of course, you know how those work. Actions we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, this is interesting. There's also an option to raise a size 1 city. So basically, you can destroy one of the size 1 cities you own if you'd like to. So this is a case where maybe you captured a barbarian city. It's in the way. It's your color now. You don't really want it. You burn it out of the way. Or you're afraid that someone's going to capture it back from you. You're just going to get rid of it. You can do that if you want to. And the last thing you're going to do is determine the first player. Now, how you figure out the first player for the next round is based on, you take your culture meter, the culture arrow, and the happy meter, and you add them together. So if my culture meter is at 3 and my happy meter is at 4, that's a 7, right? And we're going to compare it to Dan's sum and Craig's sum, and who's got the highest sum is going to be the new first player. So basically, whoever civilization is, quote unquote, the best combined happiness and culture is going to be player number 1 in the next round.
Yeah.
Thing to remember about this, though, is that if it's a tie, generally the guy who had it last turn stays the leader. So if you get to that,
was odd.
Yeah. So if you get to that early powerhouse first, you got to keep it, which is kind of interesting. That's the status phase. Once that's over, you go back and you repeat the whole turn again we just described. Boom, that's it. You just keep repeating until the game's over. Yep, and the basic game is 7 rounds, but there are some variants with shorter rounds we'll talk about in a bit. That's the whole game. We've talked about mood, so we know how that works. The city bits are kind of cool. Craig, do you remember the different city bits and how they work?
I do. You had my personal favorite, which was the fortress, which only helps when you're defending, but boy, does it help. It negates a hit, which means it saves a guy or a piece of your city from being destroyed.
Yep.
And it adds an additional die, so it counts as a warrior when you're defending that city. So that's awesome. The academy gives you 2 ideas, and ideas are cool. Did you go over ideas?
No, we didn't. There's actually 2 special resources we didn't cover.
2
so go ahead.
special resources, ideas and coins, and they are both basically wild cards.
Yep.
So you get ideas, and you can spend those as any resource in the game.
Well, no, ideas only can be spent in place of food for research.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then coins are the ones that are the wild card we can spend for anything.
It cheated then.
Oh, well.
Yeah, well, we saw how well that worked out.
We did.
So you get 2 idea tokens, or you go up. Your idea token goes up 2 spaces in the track if you build an academy. If you build a port, it allows you to harvest an adjacent sea space for food, gold, and my own personal favorite, mood.
Right.
Because clearly you're launching like dinner cruises,
right?
Set cruises from your port.
Well, you're able to trade with foreign nations, bring in, spices and silks.
Those are actually, another really cool thing about the game, those are actually built into your tech tree. So it's not like those are abstracted as harvesting mood. You literally can build trade routes that get you all kinds of gold.
Yep.
And then if you build a temple, you get mood or culture when a mood or culture token when you build it. But another cool thing is there's various different government upgrades that you can buy that allow some of these buildings to help you fight off cultural influence and other things like that. So there's multiple things some of these city bits might be able to do for you.
Yeah, the tech definitely stacks, and all of a sudden, these things become more and more powerful. So these are the basic rules for them, but then they get even crazier. But you don't have to look anything up. It's all right there in your tech tree if you can just, take the time to read it all and figure it all out. Now, we didn't talk about combat either. We should talk about it. Combat's actually pretty simple and deadly. And basically how it works is I'm in my movement phase. Let's say I move in, 3 soldiers against Craig's city with a fortress and 1 guy. Okay, so I move in there. I'm going to attack you, Craig. So as soon as I do that, once my movement step's over, we're going to fight. And in the combat, you're going to roll 1d6 for each soldier or boat involved in the combat. So if it's boats versus boats, whatever it is. So in this case, I got 3 soldiers, so I'm going to roll 3 dice. Craig has got a soldier in his city, so he's going to roll 1 die, but the fortress also gives him plus 1 die, so he's going to roll 2 dice. Yeah. So I roll all my dice. Now, you're not really looking to roll 5s per die. What you're really looking for is you're going to sum all your dice up and divide by 5, rounding down, and that's how many hits you're going to get. So every full 5 pips, you're going to do a hit. So if I roll a 4 and a 1, that is 5, so that's going to do 1 hit, which is basically going to kill one of Craig's guys. If I rolled, I rolled 3 dice. So if I rolled a 4, a 1, and a 6, that's an 11, which is going to kill 2 full guys. So I'm going to get 2 of Craig's guys. Now, Craig's fortification, as he mentioned, gets him to ignore the first hit, but the second hit would go through and get his guy. But Craig gets to also roll a die, and he gets to roll plus 1 die for his fortress. He does the same thing. So if he gets 2 hits, my 2 guys die as well. So I killed his 1 guy, he killed my 2 guys. It's a wash. I got nobody left. He defended his city successfully. If I had a guy left, I would then, and Craig had no warriors left, I'd have conquered his city. If we both roll dice, do some damage, but we both still got guys left, the attacker can choose to either retreat or press the attack and go for another round and rinse and repeat. That's pretty much all there is to it. Yeah. And there's some cool technological bonuses that kick in, like the fortress we just described. There's also steel weapons, and there's also cool. Now, let's talk about the action cards for a minute. So there's these cool action cards in the game, and the action cards have 2 halves. The top half is sort of a thing you can usually do during your turn for general things like, gain a technology someone else already has next to you because you spied on him, for example. You spend a culture token and spy on Dan, and I'll get his technology, one of his technologies. But the bottom half is usually combat related. Like, for example, archers roll combat dice before your opponent gets to go. Kind of thing. Oh crap! Wipe his guys out before he gets to shoot at you. Or maybe you got a technology called Siegecraft, which I can spend some ore and negate Craig's fortress effects. So there's all kinds of technology like that to modify this combat system. But the combat system itself is very straightforward and simple. What did you think of the combat system, Craig?
I liked it. It's very confusing the first time you hear Russ explain, you're looking for multiple fives, round down, but once you roll off one, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I am adding up, and I'm looking for multiples of 5.
Right. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Now, one other thing we should mention here, too, real quick, is the technology here. There's a lot of game depth in the tech tree. I would argue that if you took the tech out and just put the game's rules would be so simple, it would seem almost, I know it may sound complicated with what I'm describing here, but actually be kind of trivial. But the technology itself adds a lot of depth here. I think we've already touched on most of it, though. The big thing I wanted to mention here, though, is there's really some cool ecosystems you can build out. Craig hinted at the idea of, like, the trade routes. So, for example, one of the technologies is trade routes, which means if I have a ship within 2 spaces of another unique enemy city, I can then generate 1 food per turn for free at the start of my turn. For each ship, up to 4. And there's another technology I can get, which actually, instead of getting food, I get gold coins, which are basically, remember, the universal resource. So all of a sudden, if I get enough ships spread out near everybody else's cities and I've got trade routes, all of a sudden I'm making 4 gold a turn for doing nothing, not even spending an action. So
and we were all getting bitter about it.
They were, in fact, when the earthquakes came and wiped out all the cities, I was upset because all of a sudden all my trade routes were destroyed. I was like, what you people are causing Earth itself to kill my trade routes? So it's kind of fun. So the technology is really interesting there. Craig had an interesting ecosystem. Did you get an ecosystem going, Craig? I think you kind of did with your military.
I had several, actually, because you can do the science. If you pursue the science tech tree, the thing is, the tech trees, each tech has 4 different technologies underneath its title, and quite often one technology that will help you build others and make it easier to build others, and they'll actually unlock a bunch that you don't even have to pay for. You just have to use an action to get. And when you do scientific research, and I had one of my objective cards was if you have all 4 scientific advances at the end of this round, you get 2 victory points. So I did it, and what it does is it opens up other things like I can't remember the names of things, but if you get engineering, for instance, then you can do roads and irrigation for free and things like that. So I had a bunch of that stuff, and towards the end, because I was going warlike because I had barbarians all around me, I really needed steel weapons.
Yeah.
So I was looking to get steel weapons. There's 2 ways to get it. You can pay the 2 food and 2 ore on top of that to do it in the martial tech tree, or in the science tech tree, you can get metallurgy, and then metallurgy allows you to, for free, get the steel weapons upgrade and gain 2 ore if you already bought it on the martial tech tree. So I had multiple things going at once. None of it actually made any sense or really helped me, but I had multiple sort of trees going at the same time so that they were sort of supporting each other.
Yeah, and it all makes sense too. And I think it all kind of is intuitive once you read it and understand it. Like metallurgy makes it easier to make weapons. All that was really cool. I think it made some really interesting ecosystems. I had sort of the Navy one going on there, and Randy had a really crazy economy one going on with just harvesting and cranking out extra resources every time you harvested. It was insane.
Yeah.
So that's the technology. A lot of game in that. Now also let's talk about the cards a little bit. Now we talked about the objective cards.
And the action cards.
Yeah, we talked about the action cards. We talked about those as well. One other thing is wonders. So the wonders don't show up until someone researches engineering for the first time. And engineering says, reveal the top wonder card, and then as an action, you see AAA a lot in this game, which means as an action. As an action, you can build a wonder. Well, it sounds easy, except when you reveal the wonder, you realize the cost of these wonders, as Randy quickly pointed out, is always a total of 11 resources in some combination depending on the wonder. So it might be, 3 wood, 4 ore, and some mood tokens, some culture tokens or something, or whatever it is, to build the Colossal or the Great Pyramids or, whatever it is, the Hanging Gardens. And when you build these wonders, first we're going to get 5 victory points, which is kind of huge because our game ended last night with between 25 and 30 points being the score spread. So a 5-point swing is big. Plus there are many, I saw at least 2 objective cards which are also centered around building a wonder. So you could actually get bonus points on that as well. Plus, the wonders, in addition to get you 5 victory points, also give you in-game bonuses that are also very substantial. So there's a lot going on with wonders. I've never seen one built, though, because they're so expensive. Really pricey.
Yeah.
One other thing we didn't touch on, but it's kind of a huge part of the game, is the events. So the events are triggered, as we mentioned, whenever the meters, the culture meter or the happiness meter of any player crosses the big word event on their little event, on their little tracker card. And the events are going to pull from a deck. And as we mentioned, they're going to impact the player who draws them more than anybody else. But there's two things in the event card you got to watch for. I missed the icons the first time I played the game. There's the event text, which is going to be anything from famine, pay 2 food, and for every food you cannot pay, reduce the happiness of one of your cities by 1 level, so which is really bad. But there are technologies that block that. For example, if you have irrigation, you can ignore that. Or there's also plague or pestilence. But if you have sanitation, you can ignore that. So there's different ways you can defend against some of these random events. And then, as Craig mentioned, there's earthquakes and there's all kinds of crazy events that can come on. But also there's icons. Some of the icons generate more barbarians.
Oh, those damn barbarians!
Makes a new settlement near you, and also puts another barbarian to an existing barbarian settlement. So the barbarian settlements grow, and it can cause the barbarians to attack. So basically, all the barbarian models from the nearest barbarian settlement within 2 of you come in and attack you and have a full war against you and can destroy parts of your city. They pillage. It's just never pretty. Go ahead, Craig.
It's just ugly.
It is ugly. Can you think of any other event examples I didn't mention?
No, I mean, we've got you've got a bunch that are actually like, put this on the table, and the first person to use a culture token to claim it gets to do a bunch of different stuff.
Yep.
So it's like that would be like a leading scientist or an imminent explorer, and basically it's like a person is born, like a world historical figure is born into this generation, and the first person who spends a culture token gets to claim them and gets benefits. And we saw like 4 or 5 of those. I thought right. Pop up over different times. And there's a few positive ones, but generally the positive ones are the ones that make the barbarians go nutty.
Right, that's true. So, and there is a game variant. If you don't like the randomness of the events, I thought they were a pretty good balance. And they brought in, there's a way to defend against it, so it makes you want to buy that irrigation and some other sort of more mundane technologies. But there's 2 variants for events. One of them is you can basically ignore the events altogether and just fire off the icons for the barbarians and stuff, which kind of reduces the random element of the game if you don't like random elements. Other variants for the game, there's actually 4 different variants. One of the other ones is the shorter version, which is what Craig and I played, which is you can play the game in 4 rounds instead of 7.
Yeah.
Plays pretty much the same, except that during this, you start with a little more stuff.
Starts with a little more stuff.
And you get 2 free advances in the status phase instead of just 1 free advance. And there's another variant which is really interesting. Instead of the 7-turn standard game, you flip the turn card over, and after turn 5, you start rolling to see if the game ends on at the end of each round after each status phase. So that takes out the sort of pre-calculated, I've got exactly 3 turns left. You don't really know how many turns you have left. You got to kind of make your final decisions. You're not really sure when to do it. So kind of, if you like a little more randomity game, that's the way to go as well. That's pretty much the whole game. Did that make sense to you there, Dan?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to it. So I think I'd have to start playing to really fully understand it. But it sounds like it's pretty straightforward once you start doing stuff.
It is pretty meaty. So, Craig, before we take to our final thoughts here, I think we have to describe the patent-pending D6G rating system.
Oh, yeah?
So, in the style of a Howdah driver in search for his elephant, please describe the patent-pending D6G rating system.
Oh, my God, where is my elephant? Where is he? Where is my elephant? If I was looking for an elephant and I had a really good chance of finding him, I would roll a D6, and on a 2+, I would automatically find him. And on a 6+, if it was like a really crowd of elephants and there were a bunch of elephants and I couldn't find my elephant, that would be like a 6+. Anyway, so we've had several, not complaints, but statements. And again, this is earlier in the show, we talked about our influx of new friends.
Yes.
And many of them are saying, every time you talk about this rating system, like you do it in this like, oh my God, I'm dying from aliens. And that doesn't help me. And Russ has an excellent point. And Russ's point is, if you just listen to an hour and 15-minute game review and you don't know how we feel about it, maybe us saying a 4+ or 4-star doesn't really help you either. But to be very quick, think of it as basically what we're saying is your average gamer is likely to enjoy this game on a D6 roll of X plus. So if we say a 2+, that means there's a 5 in 6 chance that your average gamer is going to like this game. So that's the highest we can give you.
Yeah, with a reroll.
With a reroll would technically be the highest, because we also like to tick off the mathematicians in our audience using the term reroll as a half.
Yes.
So we could say 2+ with a reroll, which is basically the absolute best you could possibly get. And the worst is, of course, and I think we may have done this once in the entire 5 years that we've been doing the podcast. 6+ with a reroll means that, and it's the only reroll that actually works in reverse, you're going to have to roll boxcars to like this game.
Right. 6+. So basically, it's the chance a gamer's going to like the game, right?
Exactly.
So 6+.
And if that bothers you, think of it as a 5-star rating in reverse, and you're fine. The lower the number, the better we like the game.
And
period.
Equals half.
Let's move on.
Yes. All right. So Craig, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
All right, go ahead.
Well, as we all know, 4X games are not my favorite. And as we all know, I learned, strangely enough, in the last couple of weeks, I like more 4X games than I thought I did.
Yeah, the game list shows that, for example.
Yes, the game list shows that I enjoy 4X games more than I think I do. However, I'm still going to say it's not really my kind of game, mainly because there's just so many options. I can't focus on a couple things that I really like. I'm constantly feeling like I'm behind, and I generally am behind. However, having said that, it's not really my type of game. Like, it's not something that I would seek out. I would very happily play this game again in the future if we were playing the shorter version, because I really enjoyed the 4-round version that we played, where everybody starts with more stuff and you get more advances during the bookkeeping phase there in the middle. Because it was a very fast-paced game, the way that shaped the whole game. I think, in my humble opinion, that this does a better job at 4X than Civilization, which I never really enjoyed. I find Russ said it really well at the beginning of this review, where he said that the board looks very abstract because it's all squares with Civilization, and that's always bugged me. The whole game, Civilization, to me, seems very abstract because you're talking about Abe Lincoln and blah, 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 and whatever. In this game, you can really literally see these civilizations building and spreading, and their cities are getting bigger, and they're developing these different technologies. I think the tech tree, the way the technologies work in this game, is dealt with much better than Civilization. There are some abstracts, which there was some guy who came in and was watching our game and complained about one of the abstracts, which I was like, which is always odd socially. But anyway, like, you're not playing. So anyway, none of the abstractions in the tech trees bothered me at all. I totally understood what they were trying to do and what they were trying to recreate. Mm-hmm. Everything seemed to be very intuitive to me, the way things should work and the way which things should go together. And I really thought that the whole game, as it's put together, is very elegant. The way it deals with combat, the way it deals with cultural influence, the way it deals with civic improvements. It seems like it kind of has a nod to everything you would need to have a good 4X game that has some meat to it. That's not like just a quick throwaway game. It's not a filler game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like a total brain burner that you're going to be just agonizing over every moment of the game. So I would say that your average game is going to like this game on a 4+, so 50-50 chance. Mm-hmm. But if you like 4X games in general, I think it's going to be a +2 on that roll.
+2, wow. So you're saying it's a 2+ for those guys.
I think if you like 4Xs, you're going to like this game.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good rating. Okay. Let's see. Well, Dan, I'll let you go last after you hear all of our stuff here. So I'm with you, Craig. I like how this looks on the table a lot. And
one other thing.
Go ahead, yeah.
I wanted to say, I don't understand why this game wants first player to stay the same if possible.
Oh, yeah.
It's very odd. Almost all games try to make it so the first player shifts around a little bit. And in this game, if at all possible, first player stays where it was. So it's That was a little confusing and frustrating to me because there were times where I was like, oh, I'd really like to, get a little leg up on Randy, and Randy was first player through almost the entire game.
Yeah, I'm still trying to decide if first player, how much of an advantage it is. There's definitely some advantage to it, but then also I like being after him too sometimes. So I don't know.
I think it evens out for sure. I don't think it's a huge like a game winning advantage, although he did win. But it was
no, he didn't. He lost.
You sure?
Justin won. Yeah, Justin won.
Oh, that's right. Justin won by 1 point.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. So so I don't think it's a huge game changer. It's just it was odd to me. That's the only part of the whole game that seemed counterintuitive.
All right, good. Let's see. So I with you. I love how it looks on the table, and I'm on record. I'm a big 4X guy. It's one of the reasons I bought this thing on the shelf, pretty much not knowing much about it because I love 4X games. The back of the box, it's got lots of bits, and I'm a sucker for that too. So I was right in. And I do love. One of my favorite 4X games is Sid Meier's Civilization Fantasy Flight Games. I really like the implementation. I like what you can do. There's some really interesting abstractions, but I'm really liking this a lot. I got to play it a few more times. But this has got a good chance of dethroning that one. This could be my new favorite. Civ Building 4X. I really like the tech system. I like it a lot. It's really slick. There's a little bit of analysis paralysis there. There's a lot going on in that tech tree, but there's also a lot to mine, and it makes you want to play it again and try different ways to build your civilizations up. It's got a really good balance between war and peaceful operations. You can make a very successful civilization with very little combat, or you can make it a combat heavy game. It's really up to you, and it's gonna force your other players to make decisions too about that also, which is really interesting. But you do have to watch your war, because if you're not careful, your opponents can come in sweeping in and take out half your civilization. You got to have some defenses up there. You can't just sit around. And even if your opponents don't do it, the barbarians can. I think Craig lost half a city to barbarians once, which was
I was attacked twice by barbarians.
They are pesky.
I don't say stinking barbarians for nothing.
That's right. Now, one of the things about this game that I would say, most people would say, well, one of the things about Civ that's nice is there's these faction-specific powers. So, like, if you play America in Civ, right, there's special abilities that the leader Abraham Lincoln has that are different from Cleopatra and are different from, well, those don't exist in this game. All the factions are identical, except that when you're dealt those objective cards and you're dealt those action cards, those are sort of like your faction powers, because they give you special scoring abilities like some of the guys have in Civ, and they also give you special actions you can do, which like the guys that have in Civ, but they change. So it does make the game different. It does affect your play style. So there is some of that specialness there. It's just handled a different way. I love the barbarians. I don't like how abstracted they are in Civ. This game, they really are there. They feel like they're in your way. And some games you don't see them very much. I think some games you don't see them at all. Other games they're very, very heavy. And I realize Craig mentioned earlier, I love the city growth. It feels, one of the best parts about 4X is watching your little civilizations grow and come to life, and building that city power. Then watching Justin over there in yellow building these temples and these academies. I didn't have that. I was just basically port guy running around with like low tech ships and trading with people and making money as a merchant. It was just really interesting to see the different dichotomies there of how you can play the game. I also love how easy it is to teach. Craig, do you feel it was hard to learn the basic mechanics of the game at all?
No, the basic mechanics were, you're playing 3 turns around, and I would say by your second turn, you know what you're trying to do. So, you've still got so many choices. You're agonizing over all the different things you have to do the things you want to do, but you know what you want to do.
Exactly. And I mentioned the ships before too, but I want to see, I'm a Navy guy. I like to see ships on the board, and I think any classic old school game, ships are really important. It's part of so much development in history. And in Civ, they very much abstracted it, which is fine because then it turns into airplanes and it's very abstracted. But here, ships are a central part of the game. They're really interesting. I love how they can sail around the board and circumnavigate the globe and stuff. And it just really adds a lot of the feel of old ancient history to it, which I like a lot too. Player mats are fantastic. The only cons to this game, I think it's a great 4X. I really do. I'm with Craig on this. Components are weak in some areas, especially the wonders. They're kind of lame. Also, as Craig mentioned, the player aid cards could be a little thicker. The rule book, I would like to see a quick reference sheet, and there is a distinct lack of elephants in this game. There should be more elephants. So, but I'm going to rate this as a 3+ for the general gamer, Craig, because so far everybody I've introduced it to likes it. Yeah. So I'm going to go 3+, and then I'm going to go 2+ +1 for 4X fans.
There you
this
go.
is if you're a 4X gamer, you got to at least check this out. Get it to the table with some friends. I think you'll be impressed with it. So that's my rating. Dan, what do you think? What's your desire to play this thing? After hearing all that.
My personal desire, so that's outside the regular rating system. Yes. I think I'm going to agree that overall, I'll just say that for most gamers, I think it's going to be a 3x, just based on the amount of time investment for the average gamer. But I think that my interest level is a 4x, because I definitely don't play this type of game, this length of game, this weight of game all that often. But it definitely sounds interesting enough that I would like to do it. But I just keep looking at the cover and I'm like, no elephants?
I know.
So I think I would have to get some elephants. Luckily, I have a bunch from the prototype.
What's that?
You got to ding them a little bit for that elephant thing.
I do want to ding them for it, but if people can like Agricola and then they go in and buy all the food tokens to make it work, I can like this game and have to find I need Ella Meeples. I need Ella How to Meeples. Ella.
There you go. The Formula E is your answer, man. It's coming.
Do they have Howdas in the back for the racing Howdah? I just want something that looks like it's got a Howdah on the back, like these guys with spears.
Yeah. Have you looked at go look at the Formula E Kickstarter page?
All right. Well, I want the rider. I want a Howdah. I want a war elephant.
Oh, I see. So you just want a rider with like a spear on the back then.
Yeah, and basically I want to just replace the normal warriors in the game with the elephants. That's all.
Yeah, I think you could use the meeples if you look at the ones there. I think those would work.
Or elephants in a boat. Like they're sailing across.
In a boat. But yeah, I mean, it sounds, it's a big meaty game. It's very much for me, it's like Merchants and Marauders. It's like, I'm not going to play it, I might play it once every 6 months or once in a year, but it's interesting enough that I'm definitely interested in playing it. So I'd say for the average gamer, a 3+, and for me, a 4+.
Nice. Okay, well, there you have it. That is Clash of Cultures.
Oh, wait, where'd he go?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the D6 Generation Podcast. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what? Who writes this? That's impossible.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. And now it is time to pick the second winner from the big 2013 New Year's Resolution voicemail contest. Now, Craig is off on vacation down in the wild wild summer lands, wild swampy lands. I don't know, Florida. He's in Florida anyway. So while he's gone, it has fallen to me to take care of the rest of the contest entries. So you guys did a great job. Thank you so much to everyone who took time to leave us a voicemail. There are some great entries. Listen to them all. And also, this is the first time in a contest that we've actually put every single entry on the air. So all of them between last episode and this episode have been in the show. I think I got them all. There were a couple that had no audio on them. So for those of you who didn't get them through for some technical reason, I'm sorry. But if you got through and we can listen to it, it is on the show. Also, no talent required. Remember, we're just rolling. So last episode, we played 2 batches of entries, and we had a winner. And that person selected the reprint of Dungeon from our friends at Wizards of the Coast from the prize tub. Very exciting. So that's been mailed out to him. And now for this time, I want to make sure we got everybody in here. So there's actually 3 batches of contest entries. One of the batches is earlier this episode. Another batch is also somewhere in the middle of the bumpers. And then the final batch will be on the end of the episode in lieu of a Easter egg there. So plenty of entries. Thank you again to everyone who entered. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll a D6 and see where the winner is going to come from, which of the 3 batches of today's show. So I've labeled them batch 3, batch 4, and batch 5 because batches 1 and 2 were last episode, just to make things, a little confusing. So here we go. So let's see. I'm going to roll a D6 first of all here and determine if it's batch 3, batch 4, or batch 5 where the second winner is coming from. On a 1 or 2, it is batch 3. 3 or 4, it is batch 4. 5 or 6, batch 5. Here we go. I'm rolling now. I got a 2. It is from the batch 3, the first batch in this show. So here we go. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 entries in the very first batch. So I'm going to pull out my trusty D10 here. Look at that. It's all shiny. It's actually, if you're wondering, it's black with silver numbers. Very sexy die. Here we go. Rolling the big D10. Here we go. I rolled a 4. So counting down 1, 2, 3, 4. It is Michael K. His resolution was to finish his Crix and Kador painting job. So Michael, congratulations. And send us in your address from your email and have your reference phone number in there so we know it's you. And we will send you a picture of what's left in the prize tub, which is still plenty of stuff in the prize tub. And you can pick a game or whatever out of there. There's even some, we got some graphic novels in there, Assassin's Creed, all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, take a look and pick it out. Thanks again to everyone who submitted great entries and get to this every time. It's a lot of work putting them all together, but we're really happy to get you all in there. It's fun to listen to them, and we'll do another crazy contest soon. Thanks.
The D6 Generation Podcast. All of the mysteries of gamer culture revealed. The D6 Generation. Born to game.
And now it's time for us to talk about our favorite way to vacation. And of course, that would be Geek Nation Tours.
Indeed.
Because if you're a gamer, there's no cooler way to game than going around with your friends on vacation. And if a bunch of your friends aren't all going to the same spot, then you can't do any better than going with Geek Nation Tours, where you're traveling to some awesome destinations with people who love the same stuff you love. So you're going to have conversations over dinner about gaming. You're going to be able to talk on the buses about gaming. You're going to be able to talk in the hotels about gaming.
Hey,
and
Craig,
of course,
guess what?
Chris, what? Guess what?
I just found out that at the Gen Con, Geek Nation Tours is going to Gen Con. I don't know if you know about this. But
I didn't know that.
Yes, and we are going to be there at the welcome dinner.
I did know that.
I just found out also that Tom and Eric from the Dice Tower also at the Gen Con dinner.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. And then also that Wednesday, the whole tour is going on the Millennium Falcon experience at the Star Wars Where Science Meets Imagination exhibit.
Yep.
Also, what's the deal with Ross Watson? Is something going on with him?
Well, Ross Watson was involved with the Star Wars role-playing when he was still at FFG, and you actually have heard him do his GMing if you've listened to that Death Watch RPG episode from last year's Gen Con, and you are going to have a chance to actually play a Star Wars RPG session run by Ross Watson on that Wednesday with the help of Kentucky Fried Gamers.
So what you want to do to make sure you're involved in all that stuff, you want to go to geeknationtours.com, get signed up for it, go to upcoming tours there and sign up for the Gen Con tour. And when you do this, when you talk to Terrace, tell him you heard about it on the D6 Generation, and we will send out to you an official stitched D6G patch for your outfit or battlefield bag or whatever. Yes, let yourself know you are a person of distinction and taste or something.
Something like that.
This edition of Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by Old Guard Publishing. If you like zombies or competitive card games, check out Zombie Plague on Kickstarter from Old Guard Publishing. Did you ever notice how sometimes, no matter how well planned things are for you, they just don't work out? I am whispering into a laptop right now in an abandoned apartment. It's not really abandoned. I've just convinced everybody to leave for a little while because I'm on vacation. But you see, those of you who are in the United States will know that there's a big, giant, enormous storm roaring right across the country that's dumped feet of snow all over the place. And because of this, my flight, which was supposed to leave today, left yesterday. And because it left yesterday instead of leaving today, I didn't get to clean the pub, paint a bunch of stuff I wanted to paint, write a bunch of stuff I wanted to write, and play a game of Iron Kingdom's role-playing with Russ and his brother John and my friend Joe that I've been looking forward to for months. Also, coincidentally, what else I didn't get to do? You guessed it. Record Did You Ever Notice? So here I am, with no recording equipment except my laptop, in an old rental apartment in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. Okay, that's about enough of that. I just couldn't make you suffer through that forever. Also, there was a technical glitch somewhere along the way, and this episode ended up being put back a week and a half. So it would really have been just not very kind of me to have saddled you with that for the entire way. Also, a couple things have come up, and I decided that I wanted to make a hybrid Did You Ever Notice and kind of put most of what I had going on in that little tiny room in Florida on a later date.
Basically, I was going to talk a little bit about something that happened to a friend of mine when he went to a book signing locally right before I went to Florida. And it was intriguing. I haven't gone to a lot of things like book signings myself. I just don't deal well with lines. And that's really the only reason. This friend of mine is a huge fan of the Wheel of Time series, which longtime listeners know I just could not get through. I read the first book and I didn't like it. It was long and chunky and clunky, and so I put it away. I know lots of people love it. I know lots of people say that the books just kept getting better and better. This particular book signing, of course, wasn't Robert Jordan, because he unfortunately passed away before he finished the series. It was Brandon Sanderson, who was another writer, a much younger writer, who stepped in and was asked to step in and finished the series. And my friend Mark is a huge fan of his also, so he was very excited to go to this. And it what he experienced there kind of made me start thinking about some of the strange things that occur within gaming or geekdom or nerddom or whatever you want to call it in general, because for the most part, we as geeks, as gamers, are socially reticent. We're a little, we hang back. Most of us aren't really what you'd call, not vengeful, but really energetic type A personalities. I'm sure, yes, absolutely, they're out there in the gaming world, but more gamers, I think, have a tendency more to be on the quiet side, on the introspective side, as opposed to extroverts. And so, in a large social gaming or geekdom, quote unquote, situation, I think there's a tendency that what would not normally happen, I think, in other monolithic groups, might tend to happen more often, and that is if you have an extrovert of a particular personality type, it's more likely that they might take over. And that's what happened at the Wheel of Time, at the Brandon Sanderson book signing. What happened was there was this giant gentleman, apparently, and this was in a theater. It was so huge, so many people. They only did one in all of New England, apparently. And so we have a beautiful theater in my hometown, and for some reason they have a connection. My little local bookstore has a connection with the Wheel of Time in general, because Robert Jordan, before he died, actually had come here to do a signing, and now Brandon Sanderson was doing his only signing in New England. So he came and they did it in a whole theater, in a stage theater, not a movie theater. And so he was up on the stage and he was talking to everybody and answering questions, and it was all about trivia and how do you come across all kinds of things that you'd like to ask an author. But there was this one giant guy who apparently knew every last little trivia piece. He had no official function at this event. He had no official connection. He didn't know Brandon Sanderson didn't know him, but he stood at the edge of the stage, what those of us in theater would call the apron, and stood there basically resting his elbow on there as if he was part of the whole process, and was answering people's questions as they were asking the author, and really just took over. And my friend, as he was telling this story, was getting more and more agitated, more aggravated. And this was a generally positive group, of course, all these big fans. And there was, of course, cosplay. One particular woman, I found this intriguing, apparently in the Wheel of Time series, there's a group of the wizards or the magic users are all divided into, houses or clans or whatever. And there's one clan that's all women and they hate men. And all of the different groups identify themselves with shawls. And the women that wear red shawls hate men. And so there's a woman wearing a red shawl. So my friend thought that was funny, as did I. So my friend Mark is telling this story, and he started referring to the guy as Mongo. And it just so fit in my head with this overbearing personality that you get sometimes in gaming, where because there is that vacuum where everybody's kind of like quiet and doing their own thing, that a guy who's not quiet might just kind of wedge himself in there. And I just thought it was very funny in Mongo, and that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Today has been dominated for the most part, interestingly enough. Of course, my Kickstarter, it's not my Kickstarter, it's Romeo's Kickstarter, the Outlaw Miniatures Kickstarter. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about that. I hope you guys don't feel like I'm taking advantage or being self-serving, although I totally 100% am, because I am very much interested in the success of the Kickstarter, which of course is going great. We're almost at $200,000, with a little over a week to go. And I would just implore you guys to go check it out. Just look at the miniatures, the rules, of course, by Alessio Cavatore, the background by somebody you know. The comic books, the first issue of the comic book has come out. It looks awesome. It's just really exciting time for me. And of course, whenever Romeo connects himself to something, there's always a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of worry, because he seems to be almost like nerd catnip for a certain specific type of guy that's out there. And I know that some people have had issues and whatever, but I'm talking about there's literally, and I didn't believe it until I saw it for myself on a couple different occasions, there's 2 or 3 people, literally 2 or 3 people, that follow him from forum to forum and place to place, and literally just flame him out whenever he rears his head. So they go to the infinity places, they go to Daka, wherever he shows up trying to do something and trying to comment, they're all over him like he's trying to hide stuff. And right now he's trying to hide that he's connected to Wild West Exodus, which is insane. Because it's all over the web. I mean, he's not like, I'm Romeo and I am Outlaw Miniatures, because he's not. I mean, there's a big, huge team of us that are working on this, but is he the moving factor? Yes. Has he hidden that? No. And it really aggravates me because 3 guys, it may be 2, but I think it's 3, literally pledged $1 today so that they could start putting trash comments on the comment section of the Wild West Exodus board. And it's the same guy, because he does the same thing every time, where he's like, here's the legal information about battle foam. And he posts this big, long thing that you can get this information on the website and the state council, blah, blah, blah. And it's crazy, because the whole argument is that Romeo's hiding his connection. It drove me crazy. And now it's the first time, of course, that kind of activity is actually going to financially impact me. So I really wish I could kind of reach through and strangle the person, but I can't. And I wouldn't, of course, if I could, because I'm such a, nice, unassuming guy. But anyway, so of course I want this to succeed. I'm very excited by it. There's more of my writing is out there now as an update. A very short part of the Outlaw story went out as an update a couple days ago. So if you haven't seen that, please go check it out on the Kickstarter. Look at the models. Look, check it out. I mean, some of those pledge levels and some of them that aren't super huge are coming with like a 50, 60, almost 70% discount on these models. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's buildings, the cool looking sci-fi Wild West buildings with a little sci-fi flair with them. There's all kinds of stuff there. There's a giant, enormous, awesome resin sci-fi train that somebody should have made years ago, and it's on there now. Just all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm just going to ask you, please go check it out. And if it looks like it's something you're interested in, let people know. That's all I'm asking. And I am going to do a little bit of a contest. And I'm going to tell you, this is what I'm going to do. I want you guys, please, for me, please, okay? Go out there and spread the word. And as you're spreading the word, I'm going to ask you, send me an email, 1 email per listener, with as many links as you can of different places that you've mentioned Wild West Exodus. And it could be Twitter, it could be Facebook, it could be, any of the forums that are out there. And try to be creative. Don't just go to like the big 3 or whatever, okay? And everybody who sends me emails that include verifiable links, I'm going to put them all in a raffle. And I have a few copies left of Wild West Exodus, the comic book, issue 1, signed by Michael Nigro, who is the awesome artist, signed by myself, who wrote it, and signed by Romeo, who's the basic story is by him. Now, and we had these a month ago, so again, he's not trying to hide. So I will pull names out of hats or roll dice or whatever I need to do, and I will make sure that this pristine copies, brand new copies, get to you as soon as possible, signed by all three of us. And I think I might have 4 or 5 left. So I'm gonna I'll do 4 or 5, however many I have left. I'm gonna give that many out. And I would just really appreciate it, guys, if I could somehow just, my excitement and my enthusiasm could come through this microphone and go through my little soundboard and my computer and reach you and just spur you just to check it out. I'd really appreciate that. And don't be a Mongo. That's all I've got to say about that. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you guys for being awesome listeners and gamers. And once again, I'm reminded how lucky we are in the quality of the people who listen to our show and respond to our show and give us feedback. Because there are some serious hammerheads and Mongos out there, and they almost never come swimming around us. And I appreciate that. I love that about you guys. And so thank you. Thank you very much. And I will talk to you guys in a couple weeks. Bye.
Achievement unlocked. You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Hi, my name's Nick Rao, and I guess my gamer resolution for this coming year is to learn how to game after my daughter is born. How to balance that and make sure I balance them appropriately and don't neglect one or the other. And don't worry, priorities are in line. My little girl is most important. But anyway, that's my resolution. Keep up the good work, guys.
Hey, Russ and Craig. Thanks a lot for having a great event at TempleCon. It was awesome. My New Year's resolution is going to be to get a Super Dungeon Explorer and get it all painted up and play with the family. Thanks a lot. Continue the great work on the awesome show. Thanks. This is Joel Morgan, signing out. Bye.
Hello. Hello, my name is William Kuby. And, yes, I'm an addict. No, my name is William Kuby, and I play Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000, and I might be getting into Kings of War. Big mistake. My resolution is to get most of my stuff done, or all of my stuff done, and organize my scenery so I could play my games and find someone to play with, because I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Ugh. I've yet to bump into anybody that really would be committed to play. Well, I've been listening to your show for the past 6 years, and it's funny and informative, and there's some things I wouldn't mind talking about, but I'm not going to get into them right now because that's a completely different phone call. All right. There's not going to be any music, not going to be any exciting stuff on here. We'll still dull as human being. And, well, I'll be listening. Thank you very much.
Hi there. My name's Andrew, and Andrew Haas. I'm calling in because I heard you guys want voicemail messages from the last episode. I haven't been a long-time listener, but I really do appreciate the podcast. I think you guys do great work here. I don't know exactly what the voicemail is supposed to be about. I'm going to assume it's a carryover from the resolutions from the previous episode. So my gaming resolution for this year is going to be to drop one game for every game that I pick up. So I stay in sort of a net neutral game situation. Hope you guys get this and hope it makes it on the next podcast. Even if it doesn't, I'll still enjoy the next one. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
Hey, this is Ryan from Waco, Texas, and my resolution is two-part. For the first part, I want to get a fully painted, or field a fully painted Dreadball team. I got it on the Kickstarter. I've got the whole Dreadball Striker package, so I have the 4 primary teams. I want to paint those up and run demos, but that's kind of the grand goal. My resolution is just to field at least one of those teams painted. Second part of this is I would love to hear a Dreadball review from you guys. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on how the game plays and what you think of Dreadball, the new hotness from Mantic Games. Thanks. This is again Ryan from Waco.
Hi, this is Jay Arnold calling from Illinois. Here's my resolution. Whereas I have a pile of old school 40K Rogue Trader era figures that need some love, and whereas none of the rules out there are tripping my trigger currently, and whereas I dig writing on my own rule sets anyway, and whereas I enjoy running games at conventions, be it resolved. I will write a full tactical sci-fi game, playtest, develop a scenario, paint the figures, and build terrain for a 4 to 6 player game in time for fall recruits in Lee's-Summit, Missouri. Also, I hope Russ can stop that damn teeth-sucking thing he does and quit talking really, really fast when I'm excited. Enjoy the show. Congratulations on yet another year, and I look forward to hearing your predictions for 2014. Bye.
I don't know what you're talking about, Jake.
Hey, guys. Wanted to say I really like the show and appreciate all your hard work over the years. And if it's not too late, I was hoping to get in on the New Year's resolution contest. I just heard your last episode and wanted to get in on that if possible. My New Year's resolution is to get my 10-year-old son into miniature wargaming. And in that respect, I went online, and for Christmas this year, he got an unpunched copy of Hero Quest, the old G.W. Milton Bradley game. And I'm hoping that being unpunched, as he opens it, he can get excited about it like I did when I was his age. And I can segue that into 40K or fantasy. So, hopefully that works, and that's my New Year's resolution. So, thanks a lot, guys. Like I said, really appreciate the show. And this is Joe Flesh. So,
thank you. Bye.
Hi, this is Cliff calling from Jerusalem with my resolution. My resolution this year is the campaign of Descent 2 done with my kids. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, Russ. Hey, Craig. It's Aaron F. from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm just calling in with my gaming resolution here for the contest. My gaming resolution for 2013 is, hey, hon. No, I'm just calling those guys from that gaming podcast real quick. I don't have their personal numbers. It's just like a call-in line for... Yeah, I know I'm a giant geek. Okay, I'm actually proud of it. So, no. Oh, okay. All right, guys. My gaming resolution for 2013 is actually to sell all my board games out of the gaming closet and turn that into my wife's clothing closet 2.0. So, yay! That's my gaming resolution here for 2013. So, thanks for your time, and take it easy. Don't hang up. Last night on Earth, all day, all the expansions, Something Wicked, the Coast expansion. Dude, we could fight ghost pirate ships, Flying Frog Fest. All day, Flying Frog games, nothing but. After Last Night on Earth, or after Touch of Evil, we could do Last Night on Earth with all the expansions, including Timber Peak, both cities. You do the Forest City and the original city.
all zombies everywhere. You know what? I could even take the Martians from Invasion from Outer Space and add them in too. We could have Martians versus zombies versus humans. Plus, we could add the carnies. Dude, carnies make everything better.
Oh, no, honey, no. I'm just talking myself in here. Yep. Okay.
Think about it.
Hey guys, Trauma Craig here. And I'm going to enlighten you with some of my resolutions for this year. I actually have two I'm going to share. One is actually very difficult, and the second one is pretty darn easy. So let's start with the difficult one. And this is going to make you guys cringe. Okay, so apparently I have promised myself that I'm not allowed to buy any more mini models until I finish painting all the ones I already own. And that's a tough one looking at my desk right now. So I know it's going to make you guys cringe. I know it's making me cringe. We'll see how that one works out. But the easy one is one I've already done, actually. I've decided to support my favorite podcast, and I think everyone should do the same. So I signed up for the Lost Chapters. That's right. The Lost Chapters are now mine. And after I did it, I had this great, big, warm, fuzzy feeling inside. It felt great. So if this actually does make the air, I have a message to all the listeners out there. If you too would like to feel warm and fuzzy inside, you should right away go sign up for the Lost Chapters, and bliss will be yours. Anyway, Trauma Craig here. That is my resolutions, and man, wish me luck on the first one. Take good care, guys. Bye.